Alrighty, guys, what's going on? Took a little day off offline. It's actually pretty late, and I'm about to have dinner, a little whole wheat sushis. But uh, this interesting situation came up. So apparently earlier today, I would say, or at some point, no, a couple days ago, Sneako apologized in some capacity, and I think that this video, well, it's a MoistCritikal, and I think that this video encompasses that apology. And then Sneako and MoistCritikal had a conversation. So it's going to be a doozy, guys. Very interesting. Yeah, so I wanted to watch it. And, to be honest with you, I question the intentionality of Sneako. This is apparently a shot from his Discord here, where he's pretty much just going on being upset about everybody that's betrayed him. People who haven't stuck to his corner, mostly because he's been incredibly disrespectful to literally everybody. It says, Kai Cenat, Your Rage, Shitty, and Aiden Ross, Hassan, XUC, Asmical. Literally every streamer and YouTuber reacted to MoistCritikal video about me. Not one reacts to my response video. Even the people I've defended. I defended Kai Cenat from allegations, defended Your Rage when Twitch banned him, defended Gideon from Pokemon hate, defended Aiden Ross from getting Twitter canceled. So right off the bat, just to be clear, it's good to defend your friends, but when you talk about it like this, it comes off as like a transaction. Usually you defend people when they're wrong, when they're not wrong, when other people are giving them hate and you feel that they're not wrong, and those are your friends, and you'll usually be a little more charitable to them because you know them. But to say, I helped you, why haven't you helped me? That's silly. We're talking about it took almost a year, I would say, for Sneako to burn through all of his past credibility. It's not like the people were treating him with baby gloves. It's up until now, after he started to engage with MoistCritikal in a way to try to hate farm him, that things have blown up in his face. It's not like he's been like this really good guy and people have been giving him tons of credit. Like, no, he burned through everything. He was treated with kids' gloves. And it wasn't until he pushed way too far and he burned all his bridges. But what this comes off to me is that he's saying like, oh, I defended you. And that's all that matters, the defense. It doesn't matter the context of the situation. It doesn't matter who was right or wrong. I defended you. You should be returning the favor. It's not how things work. When your friend does something wrong, you don't just defend them if you think that they're wrong. That would be ridiculous. But you can give them more charitability, which I think all of them did until he burned through it. Not one of them has had my back when I'm against the wall. Not one. He put himself against the wall. The Soy Boys understandably have an agenda. I made the mistake thinking people were friends in the game. They will use you for clout. Sneako is the clout rider. None of them care about the truth. They want to turn into a meme. Me into a meme. It's not about anything but views. Pay close attention at everybody. Anyway, that leads us to this video here, where apparently he apologizes or something, or references MoistCritikal. So let's just watch it.
These are 3 things that YouTube promotes on the trending page. MoistCritikal playing with and sitting on dildos. MoistCritikal using Satanism and Antichrist in his music videos. And his rampant gaming addiction. 3 things you can't say on YouTube, but you could say on Rumble. The COVID vaccine doesn't work. The 2020 election was against Trump. And billionaire pedophiles use wokeness to keep you depressed and poor.
Oh, maybe. Okay, whatever.
This is why I was banned on YouTube.
You were banned on YouTube for sexually harassing Chad, pretty much. I mean, like, let's be absolutely real. Like, he was being incredibly, like, this is the problem. People will just try to rewrite their own history. MoistCritikal got a strike for like sexually harassing Chad, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna fuck you kind of a thing. It was inappropriate. YouTube banned him for that, and then he went on his other account and posted a video, which is ban evasion, and then he got permanently banned. Like, listen, I don't know what to tell you. You're acting like there's like that there's something against you, the Matrix. But everybody, Abin, Preach City, and everybody you reference in the other thing were like, hey, chill, you're going too far, and then you got banned. There's no truth that you're speaking. You're just insane.
Today I'm in Japan, a society that has not yet been corrupted by wokeness, training hard, working every day, and seeing the world. But it's no secret that I have a degenerate past. Around 3 years ago, when I was 21...
What is it hasn't been corrupted by wokeness? Isn't that like Japan's like our ally? Right? I don't know. Okay.
...years old, I went to a swinger party with one of my girlfriends and joked about how traumatizing it was on a podcast.
That wasn't a joke. We were already starting off to a lie.
Cheating on her a lot, and I felt bad, and I thought it would make us even if we swapped with a couple.
Listen, I'm just going to tell you, I don't believe any of this the way he's telling the story. Because this is the first time he's told the story this way. Realistically speaking, from the, 10 times I've heard him tell the story before, because he would have cleared this up. It was, he went to a swinger party, because that's what his girlfriend wanted, and there's nothing wrong with that, and he experimented it and it didn't go well. He didn't like it. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that this moment of vulnerability is like, I could have appreciated it, but now he's been so actively disrespectful to everybody. They're clowning on him for it. He wasn't lying. He wasn't joking. He might have been playing it up a little bit as a little bit of a joke, but it genuinely hurt him. And that's okay. The problem is he wants to be vulnerable on the internet while attacking everybody else when they express a vulnerability as well. And that's where this double standard comes in for Sneako. I could already tell from the first minute of the video that this is just going, to me, this reads, and this entire situation reads, as somebody who's burned every bridge and has no other recourse except to try to save face by playing this game and trying to come off as reasonable. He's going to cosplay as a reasonable person. And I talk about how in the past, I don't really feel like I feel like he's always been cosplaying somebody else. In his original content, I feel like he was just cosplaying somebody who was introspective. Recently, he's just been cosplaying Andrew Tate. And now he's cosplaying as somebody who is a little more nuanced. Maybe he's cosplaying Destiny. Now that he's friends with him. But I don't think that there's any genuinity there. I think that we've lost Sneako. I think that social media addiction is real. I think that view addiction is real. And I think that Sneako is just completely gone at this point. And I don't think he knows how to be genuine. So
I don't do it anymore. I don't recommend it. And seeing how many people call me a cuck for what I thought was a funny story, you should probably not do the same. I try the lifestyle that the woke mind virus pushes, and it ends up being what the woke YouTubers try to shame me for. Kind of ironic. I showed a moment of weakness on a podcast.
Not really. Again, you were disrespectful first, and people dumpstered on you for it. So
thinking that it'd be a funny experience to talk about, and it will continue to haunt me for probably the rest of my career. Seeing all the hate online, it dawned on me in Japan, why have I never had a single negative interaction in public outside every single day? They all shake my hand and ask me for a picture.
Yeah, it's happened to everybody. Like, when I was being on TikTok, I would get a lot of hate too. And every single person I met, it was positive interaction. Usually it's because the sphere that you tend to go to, people are going to, like, areas that you gravitate towards. I don't know. Okay. First of all, people on the internet aren't really that famous. Somebody with 1 million followers on the internet they're famous, but not a lot of people know who they are in the real world. And usually you're going to hang out in like similar spheres than people who like you because they like you, right? Like I came from the area that I'm in. Everybody I've met around here who likes me says, "Hi, I like you." You know what I mean? Like, maybe there are people who know who I am and hate me, but they just never approached me. So that's probably part of it. You know, they might just go like, "Ew, that guy," you know?
Not even a little joke, haha, cuck. Never. Considering I was trending for a week straight on Twitter with hatred, that must mean two things. One, social media breeds negativity, and two, the biggest haters just don't go outside. 1 year ago today, I lived that life. I was depressed and broke. I was out of shape. I was gaming. I was watching porn. I got high every single day. I was miserable. My girlfriends clearly didn't respect me. I never left the room, and I had absolutely no purpose in life. Today, I'm happy to say I'm in the best shape of my life. I became a millionaire, and my global network is only increasing. I don't say this to flex, but to show you that there's an option. Look at the lives of anyone making a hit piece.
But let's just be absolutely real here, okay? Like, it's really cool that he's getting self-improvement, going to the gym. The reality is none of us are, like, none of you guys, there's no advice that Sneako could give you that's going to make you make $1 million. I just want to be real. He's lucky. He's lucky that he happened to grow up and everything that happened to him led him into a direction of doing content creation, which different people of different walks of life can make millions of dollars on if you're lucky. Your best advice is to try to go towards like a higher paying field and go to the gym, you know, do some kind of workout. I recommend looking into Wendler 531 and starting strength for you guys out there who want to get into weight training. That's all I can really tell you. It's good, but it doesn't mean that just because some areas of your life have improved doesn't mean that your trajectory is positive. You've destroyed every single bridge in your life. He was recounting a story about how he can't even go to his family parties anymore because they don't want him to be associated with his like anti-Semitism and like Kanye West bullshit. You talk about how there's no negativity in your life because all the fans have walked up to, but your own family has disowned you. And like, I'm not trying to be rude about it, but how are you going to sit here and pretend that like there's no criticism in your real life when your own family won't hang out with you because of how toxic you are?
Video on Sneako and look at the life that I am currently living in the present. Genuinely, which one would you rather live?
like anybody but yours, you have a very lonely life.
MoistCritikal is the physical embodiment of everything that I stand against. And honestly, no disrespect to him. I don't dislike him. He's just the perfect example of a popular YouTuber that's brainwashed. I used to watch his videos when I was a teenager, just like a lot of my other haters. And today he's everything that I don't want to be when I'm 30 years old. When I'm his age, I don't want to be playing children's video games, playing with dildos for content, and using Satanism to be edgy. I don't want to drop the Antichrist for fun.
So a couple things. First and foremost, when it comes to the video game argument, it's always very silly. I find people who are so critical against video games to be very immature. I don't think he's not playing children's video games. He's just playing video games, unless he's sitting there playing My Little Pony Rumble 2024. I don't really know. Realistically speaking, video games can impede your progress in life. Absolutely, 100%. And you should sacrifice your hobbies in order to better yourself as much as you can. When I used to work like 60 hours a week, I wasn't playing a whole lot of video games. Maybe some phone games on my off time, you know, like while I was on break at work and whatnot. But that was it. I was fortunate enough and lucky enough to be able to do this. And now I play video games a little bit more. But even when I'm like off the computer, when I'm not streaming, I don't really play games that much. I'm not a huge video gamer. But the reality is that it's like a hobby. I enjoy it. That's it. Video games is a hobby. It's a stress release. Probably a better alternative to porn. And it's a good thing to engage in, as long as you don't do it too much, right? Moderation and everything. I think it's a very immature perspective to constantly be like, video games bad, video game. There's just no depth of thought there. There's no critical thought there. You don't have to like video games, but everybody plays video games at this point. Your mom, your dad. Well, I guess you wouldn't know. They don't want to be around you, but you know, everybody plays video games at this point. Different types of games depending on the person. But MoistCritikal lucky enough to play video games for a living. It's a job. So, okay. To the Antichrist thing, kind of annoying. I'm not somebody who really subscribes to organized religion. I grew up as a Roman Catholic. My mother was my religion teacher. She was very active. And I will say that God does mean something to me. I do love the idea of God, and I hope God is real. It's a hard question every single day, and I struggle with it sometimes. Realistically speaking, though, it's frustrating when people who clearly do not hold religious values pretend that they give a shit about religion. You take the organized religion, and you weaponize it. A lot of people in the Islamic community have called you out for it. It's all just an act to come off as some kind of like a pure person, but you're not. You're still going around fucking around too much. You're prioritizing greed and money. These are just sinful things across all religions, I imagine. I think that people in religious communities should be angry at you for pretending to care. That's it. It's silly. As far as the dildo stuff, like, yeah, I think it's a little silly. Personally, I wouldn't want to be associated with that, but like, whatever. He's just having fun. Who cares?
What is this? Please someone tell me what they enjoy about this. I don't show these clips to tarnish his image, but to show you what he's presently promoting. I do not promote my woke past. I grew up online. Of course, I've made many, many mistakes. My message today is to follow God, work hard, train hard, ban porn, stop gaming, and see what's possible with your life. I criticize MoistCritikal so much because he actually released a video that accidentally changed my entire worldview by slandering my now close friends at Fresh and Fit.
Yeah. So here's the problem. Is that when you have this image here that is like you desperate for transactional relationships with friends. I don't even think that you know how to have friends. You going after MoistCritikal for this video, going after criticizing him, is because you have a warped perspective of what it means to be a friend. And that means no accountability, no introspection, nothing. Just agreeing with everything that your friends say, do, and think. And I think that cloud is tied to it. I think that you've been on social media for so long, your brain is just warped and rotted, and you went through a developmental cycle, young, because you don't stop developing until 25. You're not even there yet, with social media as too much of a prevalent feature in your life. And so now there was nothing. Your reaction was, I'm friends with this guy. I'm gonna go after him. And then that turned into hate farming, MoistCritikal, because you started getting mad. I just want to be clear. There's no deeper meaning to what's happening here. It's not that deep. This is an individual who's talking about anti-wokeness when he's basically just being woke on the other side. There's nothing super introspective here. This is all, it's very simple and plain. He's completely absorbed by social media in a toxic way. And like he only defended his friend because he's his friend. It doesn't matter if he thinks he's right or wrong. I don't think that Sneako understands right or wrong. I think he understands. I think that his life is very view focused. So
you don't have to ask what Fresh and Fit stand for. It's in the name of their show. So for every
blaming women for being raped. Let's be real. They basically, especially the other day after seeing it, when women were like, "Oh, like what are we supposed to do to not get raped?" And they're just like, "Pick better men." They're rapists. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe they haven't raped before, but here's the reality: people who don't, these two men don't drink, and they go to clubs to pick up women who are drunk. They look for women who are incredibly young, who are hairless, who are ignorant, who are naive, who have never experienced anything in life. And then they sleep with them, and then they blame women for not picking better men when they get sexually assaulted. They don't stand for being fit. They are bodybuilding memes. Okay, I used to train for strongman. I was active on the MISC forums as well, bodybuilding MISC forums. His Myron Gaines comes from a bodybuilding MISC form meme from like 2010. Right, like his name could have randomly been Jason Genova for all we know. Okay, it's not like there's nothing deep about this. These guys are bodybuilding memesters. They're online nerd. They're terminally online nerds in the same way everybody else is. Just understand that they got their names from basically the bodybuilding for 4chan. Like, understand this. Like, it's not this. It's not this like these guys. No, these guys got their names from bodybuilding MISC forums. Okay, the best meme to ever come from bodybuilding MISC forums is a shirt that has Bert on it from Bert and Ernie. It says, "Are you aware, MISC?" Like, just understand this, okay?
Everybody watching this, what does MoistCritikal stand for? What does he believe in?
I don't really care.
Do you know? I don't. I've watched him for years. I cannot tell you what he believes. How?
Probably because his content isn't about his moral values. It's just about silly, dumb bullshit. Which is, I'm not criticizing it, so whatever, dude.
Have you reached a point on the internet where you could have 10 million subscribers as a commentary channel and have no basis of commentary?
The only thing more pathetic than a guy who calls himself an alpha male.
In that video, MoistCritikal called Fresh a virgin incel loser, the same insults that I get. He insisted that men can't be with multiple women because Fresh, honestly, isn't a traditional Chad.
I think it was just because his story was kind of preposterous. When I first watched the video, I was like, "Oh, Charlie's being a little silly too." But then I watched Fresh Prince say the story multiple times, and it's like drastically different every time. She's acting like a clown, but whatever. Oh, great. I think I muted it. Incredible stuff. Based
in the entirety of the fucking multiverse where this man has slept with one woman.
Fresh was just telling a real story about how he pulled 3 girls in one night, and he actually verified it, but MoistCritikal didn't correct it. This is when I realized the brainwashing in its pure.
Where's the verification? Also, how is this brainwashing? Like this, he just doesn't believe that. Like, not for nothing. Like, I understand Fresh has a lot of money. He probably gets girls, but he's a loser. When Sneako and some, like, I think DJ Academics got drunk and were just berating a woman on the stream, Myron had to walk away for a sound issue, and it was so bad, Myron apologized the next episode. Somebody who routinely disrespects women apologized for Sneako and DJ Academics disrespecting a woman. Fresh is a pussy. He's a loser. He doesn't know how to stand up for people. He just sits in the corner like a little dog. I don't know what to tell you. There's no brainwashing here. That's just the energy he gives off. Even Myron's excuse was like, yeah, he's the behind the scenes guy. He just sits there and doesn't really say anything. He can't even control his own show from 2 drunk fucking morons.
First form. Fresh knows he's an average looking guy, but he's
just saying brainwashing. It's just a trigger. It's basically just like fucking grooming online now. Oh, grooming, brainwashing, woke. It's just, there's just buzzwords.
All over Miami as a playboy. MoistCritikal just can't comprehend that somebody like Fresh, who's the same age and on the same level of attractiveness, can be with beautiful women because instead of networking, working hard, and looking fresh, he's playing with dildos and video games.
Well, he has a lot of money. You don't really need a network to get attractive women to fuck you if you have money. So this really matters. It's just they have different priorities in life. And one of the priorities isn't to find women who are drunk while you don't drink. That's red flag.
Is the lie sold to keep you depressed? The world is out there for you to conquer as a man, but the 1%.
Bro, I'm not trying to be that guy, but you've never experienced the world before. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you haven't worked a real job. You've been a YouTuber your whole fucking life. Like, I worked for a job for 11 years. Like, just like I don't respect 22-year-old college students that go on TikTok and complain about how they have a fucking master's degree in psychology that they still can't get a job. I'm not going to respect you. You guys haven't experienced actual life, so I don't respect anything that you have to say about the way the world works. You've always been successful in some capacity on social media. You've never worked a real job. You've never gotten your ass kicked at your job. You've never gotten your, benefits taken away despite working for a union. You've never experienced having to actually deal with real shit. So, okay.
And provide us with so many distractions to gatekeep it for themselves. I criticize MoistCritikal because he makes millions of dollars selling that lie. For the young men watching, is that the life you want to live at 30 years old? The terrible tragedy.
I don't understand the lie you're talking about. You sell people the lie that everybody can get rich and famous. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That happened in Nashville yesterday is representative of exactly what I talk about in my stream. What? A trans person shot up a church, and the mainstream news was more focused on misgendering the shooter than addressing the problem.
Colorado Springs police said that they made an effort not to misgender. Who cares?
The sitting president...
What are you talking about?
What I talk about in my stream. A trans person shot up a church, and the mainstream news was more focused on misgendering the shooter.
This is just like a bit of an article that says that CNN said that they made sure not to misgender the victims. This, to me, is that they probably offhandedly said like they're trying to properly gender the person because they just want to be respectful. Which, by the way, if you're going to misgender them, be my guest. They're a scum fucking piece of shit. Who shot kids? But it's probably the idea that they're operating with is like, oh, we don't want to rile up like anti-trans hate because like most shooters aren't trans. It's not about being trans or cis or whatever identity you have. It's about somebody. I mean, it's a myriad of issues. I mean, it's about the fact that conservatives are just completely focused for some reason on LGBTQ shit. They're not talking about any, like, it's fine to criticize LGBTQ. Like, be my guest. I'm obviously trans affirming, but there's no other policy coming from Republicans other than like ban gay stuff, ban trans stuff. That's all it is. There's no other policy. They're not talking about healthcare. They're not talking about taxes. They're not talking about getting money from the rich, not to pay for more shit. They're not talking about anything. It's a hyper obsession. And so they're trying to just be respectful, probably, so that there isn't an uptick in violence against trans people. And CNN, since they're like a fucking, like, they love to suck virtuous cock, they were like, oh, guys, let's make an article for this. It's a side piece article that goes on to a greater story. And you've cherry picked it to try to make it seem like we have this woke agenda. There's really not. That wasn't even close to the biggest piece of information that came out here. It was a side piece from an annoying fucking CNN news network, which is news network, but... That's it. And you're cherry picking that to try to make it seem like you were right the whole time. When it really just boils down to people trying to be respectful of pronouns and CNN being annoying. It's not that deep. Again, you're trying to create woke. You're trying to create a depth there because you don't have any.
Than addressing the problem. The sitting president got on stage to provide a solution and instead opened up by talking about chocolate ice cream and good-looking kids.
I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs.
In Japan, there is no wokeness, there is no LGBT trans nonsense, and society is civilized. Somebody spills over their bag and everybody comes to help them out because they see each other as extended family.
I doubt that would happen in America, guys. Okay.
There's no culture war. There is a life outside of the woke degeneracy, and that's why I will continue to defend
Realistically speaking, listen. Here's what I know about Japan. You can cry about it if you want. They're they're pretty racist and xenophobic over there. A little bit sexist too. Okay. And I'm not saying that it's what it is. Their age of consent's also 13, but let's not criticize them because that doesn't fit our narrative. The reality is it's hard to live in a society of different people. That's it. They have their own problems over there. And I don't disrespect Japanese people, but they're a different culture. It can be very difficult for different people with different cultures to live together. That's one of the problems with the United States. It's easier for countries that are all one race to work together. That doesn't make them better. We are, in my opinion, the greatest country in the world. We are the strongest country in the world. We're leading by example. I love America, but it provides an additional challenge. The problem is that weak people don't know how to engage correctly in discourse in our society, and they want to blame somebody else. They want to other people all the time, and that's what's happening here at Sneako. Woke this. Like, it's just like this weird obsession with trans people because he's going on and on about it, and I find it very frustrating that we're like, you're not a real woman. It's just trans women aren't real women. Trans men aren't real men. I don't think that somebody who doesn't know how to act like a real man, which is Sneako, Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate, they shouldn't be weighing in on what a man is. A real man is respect, number one. And when you have somebody who admits to sex trafficking and bragging about it in videos, laughing at women who are sexually assaulted, telling them it's their fault for being raped, constantly being incredibly disrespectful towards people, You don't know what it is to be a man. So maybe fix that problem first before talking about trans people. Because you and people that you're going to create are not going to be good fathers. You're going to create another generation of fatherless children because you're not teaching loyalty. You're teaching that it's okay for men to cheat and women have to stay subservient. That is disrespectful, and that's creating a worthless, dumb fuck shit generation. I don't know what to tell you. Being a man, number one, is respect. And what it means to respect somebody is you respect everybody equally. I understand men and women aren't the same, but they are still equal. They still provide value that is equal to each other. Where a man is strong, a woman, where a man is, excuse me, where a man is strong, a woman is empathetic, right? We have different things, right? Where a man protects, a woman creates life. These are things that are, they add up to each other. A good man motivates a woman to be a good woman, and a good woman motivates a man to be a good man. That's the relationship I'm in. I don't know what to tell you. It's frustrating that you have a bunch of weak boys who've never been in actual loving relationships talk about what a true loving relationship is. And number one is it's hard. And number two is it's worth it. And I don't know what else to tell you, but it feels like this whole time where you got cucked, and I'm just bringing it up, is that devastated you so hard that you've completely shifted your ideology towards disrespecting women. That's what it comes off to me. But just like stop obsessing about trans people when you can't even be a man yourself.
The movie Cuties until MoistCritikal decides to debate me about it. Nobody who hates the movie Cuties has seen it. It's about an Islam.
I don't know how you could sit through it, considering it's full of fucking children shaking their ass. So kind of a red flag if you were like, yeah, oh my God. Oh my goodness, I love that Japan is the age of consent of 13. By the way, I sit through Cuties every night.
Family that moves from West Africa to France, a woke country that's literally on fire right now, and the daughter of the family gets corrupted by TikTok and starts dancing provocatively and leaves her Islamic values behind. She goes from a good Muslim girl to a degenerate wokey, lying, twerking, and fighting, and it blows up in her face and her family's disappointed, and eventually she reverts back to Islam.
I can't even fact check that because I'm not going to watch it, so he could be lying to us for all we know.
I like that movie because I see it as another version of my life. I started YouTube at 11 years old, and following the trends of social media before God led me to complete degeneracy.
He's still there, by the way. Andrew Tate's a trend, just letting you know.
But rejecting these values, I have found a new direction, purpose, and meaning for my life. A lot of the hatred is justified. I should not have been attacking the people in the soy boy collage as much as I was.
Okay. Oh, he added Tom Dark in, even though he dodged a debate with Tom Dark, just so you guys know.
But I held a lot of resentment because they actively tried to get me banned on YouTube. They encouraged...
Well, to be fair, this is a reaction to Nick's video saying YouTube should be banned, and then this is a Hassanabi reaction to it. That's not even from Hassan. It even says Hassan doesn't own this channel. So maybe he agreed. I remember watching that. I defended Sneako to an extent. Nick is not agreeing with saying that he was simulating sexual assault, which he wasn't, but he was sexually harassing somebody. This is the problem with little boys that never worked a real job. If you go to a job and you do something like that at the job, you will get fired. That comes from my experience of working a real job. Like you said, you started YouTube at 11. What real job have you ever held? Because it wasn't even my first job. When I started working when I was 12 years old. Okay. You got soft hands, brother. Every summer I would work with my uncle at his deli. My mother was a single mother. We had a very robust family. And so one of the ways that I would get babysat is my mom would drop me off at my uncle's deli. And I would work there for 12 hours a day, and I would get paid $20. And it was fantastic. I loved it a lot. I would also help, and shouldn't have been doing this, but I would help do some cashier work when I was at my mom's place of business, where she worked for a company, White Castle. I've always been working. I'm also an Eagle Scout. That's hard work. I know it might sound a little funny, but that was like hard work. I remember for one of the things I had to do, because I was an Order of the Arrow Brotherhood member, to go into the Order of the Arrows, basically Boy Scouts and the Boy Scouts. And for 2 days, you could barely eat. All you could drink was water. And have, I think you're allowed to have I think they gave us a piece of fruit and bread every day for 2 days, and you couldn't talk. It was very interesting. And what I had to do is demuck a lake. I don't know if you know what that means, but they do summer camps at lakes. And what they do is they have swimming lessons. This is what they do with the Boy Scouts. So we had to go into neck deep and just pull out twigs, rocks, tree branches, any debris and garbage, because the entire swimming area of the lake gets clogged up. It's frogs hopping around. It was a lot of fun. Sorry, my point is when you were 12 making YouTube videos, that has completely warped and destroyed your mind for the rest of your life. I was doing real things, like working a job. You have a very terminally online perspective, and now that you're a millionaire, especially, you have no reason to grow because no punishment in the world will ever actually negatively impact you. That's the reality of the situation. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. You'll be validated regardless of what dumb fucking decision that you make. And especially since you don't seem to value friendships, that's going to continue to happen because even that isn't something that you value. But when you're 30 years old and you have a death in the family, and I don't say that to be rude, your world's going to come crashing down. Because I'll tell you, when my Jaji passed away, this was like the first like death in the family that really impacted me. You really start to value family, and it'll take some time, and it's going to completely warp your entire fucking perspective. And you're going to become, then you're probably, that's when you're going to realize that your life is a fucking sham and you're miserable. So just keep that in mind. Internalize that.
Their followers to go and report my page. They celebrated when I was canceled for telling the truth.
Hey, this is not going to be a normal video.
You were sexually harassing a girl on fucking YouTube. Like, whatever, dude.
Today, I want to briefly talk about the content creator Sneako and ask YouTube to ban him from the platform.
Maybe just don't sexually harass people on the internet. Like, okay, follow the guidelines you're being told by all your friends at Shelf. So.
They publicly tried to ruin my life's work, destroy my income, all because they disagree with my worldview. I don't want to
not
attack.
What happened. This is the problem. Victim complex. If you're going to be a toxic, degenerate piece of shit asshole, at least admit it. This is the problem. This is a video that cosplays intelligence and introspection, okay, and self-awareness, because he doesn't have those things. If he was being real, he'd say, these people called for a ban, and you know what? To give them some credit, I shouldn't have been as toxic and divisive through the pushing of my message. But the reality is that Sneako's divisiveness, he uses that divisive, antagonistic, disrespectful energy to draw more views in. And then when he has to, he flips the tactic to pretending to be intelligent. It's so basic. And I know that, like, as I say this, all of you, you're probably like, oh yeah, no shit, idiot. Like, to me, you're like, yeah, no, we all know this already. We all know this. There's nothing genuine about this person.
People anymore. I would love to debate them and challenge their ideas, but they would rather make documentaries deep diving into my past and my only existence.
There's no point in having a conversation with you. You've already proved that you can't have an intelligent conversation. I've had one with you before. You just scream and cry and then run away twice in the same conversation. You're a child.
On a platform that I'm banned on and grew up on, there's only hatred. You look up Sneako, there's no more of my videos. It's just people saying that my life is over, insisting that I'm a bad person.
You are.
So the only option now is to be a force for good. And let's be honest, there is a clear pattern with the people that hate me. I don't say it to be cocky, but I am tall, I'm good looking, and I'm successful.
Okay, cool.
This is why the #1 criticism is wannabe alpha male Sneako. Whoa, this alpha male.
No, man, it's because you're disrespectful. I mean, I don't even have to keep saying it. That's why people criticize
It's rooted in jealousy and the idea that masculinity is a bad thing. I don't think I'm an alpha male.
Nobody says masculinity is a bad thing. Honestly, let me be clear. There are some obnoxious TikTok feminists, not all feminists, that do say masculinity is bad. But we're in a rebound area where people are like, the real men exist, and there's plenty of real men out there, and real men criticize shit men. Okay, for whatever reason, anytime I talk about manosphere shit, people are like, "Yeah, Papa God, I really appreciate that." Some people see me as a real man. I appreciate that. I mean, whatever you attribute that to is because I have the support of a strong woman, right? But like Ab and Preach. You know, regardless of areas that people might disagree with. I mean, these are people that are trying to purport, like, be actual real men that criticize shit male behavior. We don't have to all be perfect, but we all try to be, right? You're not a real man. You're not masculine. Masculine men don't cry like little babies when you criticize them. Masculine men don't sit here and go, look at the Funko Pops you have in the back of your room. And they go, my wife. And then the second I make a joke about how maybe the reason women don't want to be around you is because you're not a real man, you have a meltdown and cry about how you're being emasculated. You talk about truth through funny, but you can't take a joke yourself. You're a fucking child. You're a baby. You're not a man. And you should stop weighing on what it means to be a man because you've never had to actually prove yourself as a man. And you can sit there and go, well, I know how to fight. I know how to fight. I know how to fight. That's not what it means to be a real man. You want to know what it means to be a real man? A real man is this guy I used to work with. His name was Ed. He was a 40-something-year-old Hispanic migrant. He came from Salvador, and he worked a full-time job, and then he would get out of that job, and he would come and work a part-time job with me. All right, he had a wife and kids. He took care of his shit. He did the best that he could. That's a real man. Not the little boy who got popular on YouTube when he was in his teenage years and had his mind completely warped, thinking that dumb bullshit on the internet matters. You're not a real man. You've never had to step to the plate, and you never will, because you got a ton of money before you've ever truly struggled. You're never going to have an opportunity to prove yourself as a man. That's your burden. I'm boxing now. Cool. You box. You keep boxing. You keep trying to have an impression on other men. Young boys, really. But they're going to get a little older. And they're going to realize you're a fucking clown. They're going to realize the advice that you give them is absolutely nothing. It's just boring fucking dribble that has no real world application. That they just invested a bunch of money into whatever bullshit you tell them to invest in to magically get rich. They're going to realize your self-help course is nothing helpful at all. And they're going to realize that there are better places to look for a male role model that'll actually help them. You yourself have said that people who sell these courses are fucking liar bullshitters and they're just peddling nonsense. You've become that, right? The reason you don't realize that is because you never felt that way in the first place. You were cosplaying somebody who did. That's it. It's all the game to you. You want to work out, guys? Go look into Starting Strength. Wendler 531. Read these books. Go look at Alan Thrall. Look up the Lillibridge method. Look up the Cube method. Look up Chad Wesley Smith's method. These are places like that's great when you want to get into the gym. Those are fantastic resources that you should look into. You don't have to pay me. Just go buy the books. They're like $10 each on the ebook. Educate yourself. You have to put effort into yourself. You should subscribe to the concept of there's different cultures have different things. It's called like arate in the Greek culture, but in the Boy Scouts, it's physically strong, mentally awake, morally straight. 3 things you should work on: mind, body, and spirit. Do something for all of those things. Something for your mind, your body, your spirit. You want to lift weights for your body? Lift weights. You want to just run? Do that. Track. Do whatever you want. A sport, basketball on the weekend. Keep your body fit, your mind fit, and your spirit fit. And it's going to mean different things to different people. Okay? But you have to find meaning in those things. There's your advice. You didn't even have to pay me. It's good advice. Explore those things. For your spirit, God is a great place to go, but you don't necessarily need God. Or you don't need religion, but you need something that motivates you and makes you feel like you need to push forward. Something that drives you forward. Okay? And your spirit. Okay? And there can be overlap. Okay? There are people where fitness is their mind, it's their body and their spirit. So figure that out, guys.
I've never once called myself that. I promote the ideas of masculinity because it is so desperately needed right now.
Sure.
Being completely vulnerable, all this attack online has been difficult. But if Allah wills good for someone, he afflicts him with trials. And I have to be better now. Okay. I'm officially retiring the soy boy image. I forgive everybody who advocated for my cancellation or made documentaries about me. And I'm ditching
He forgives us, guys.
my attacking style of streaming.
I never advocated for it, but when he got banned, who gives a fuck? He deserved it.
And I apologize to MoistCritikal for showing a picture on stream of you and your girlfriend. That was not very Christ-like. I'm sorry. And I genuinely...
That's it. It's not very Christ-like. It's not very man-like. Here's the reality. I don't know how you don't learn this. It's because you never worked a real job or interacted with real men. Just, guys who, like Fresh and Fit, they just attacked Preach's wife, right? It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Let me tell you something. When I was younger, when I turned 18, there was a guy that I worked with, and he wasn't the best. He's a nice guy. We were all nice guys. We were all flawed. We got into an argument, and he picked up his phone because he was constantly on his phone doing his other job while I was at work. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to get into it. And I said, "Oh, who are you on your phone with? Your wife?" And he got pissed because I talked about his wife. Now, I obviously didn't talk about his wife, but after that altercation, you learn. I remember I was talking to another coworker of mine. Afterwards, he said, "Listen, okay." And obviously, I didn't have a dad to teach me this, so good thing I learned this young. He said, "Listen." He's like, "How old are you now?" I don't remember how old I was, but I was over 18. He's like, "Okay." He's like, "I understand you didn't talk about his wife, but you kind of did, and that's something you have to understand. You never talk about a man's wife or somebody that gets wife status, which is usually like a girlfriend or a long-term girlfriend." All right, you're 18 now, or you're over 18 now. You're going to get treated by society like a man. When you're a 16 or 17-year-old boy, and Sneako's caught into that era in his brain, because that's when he started getting popular, men don't check you the way that they would an adult. But when you get older, man, you're going to get hit. And like Sneako, you have to get into the right mentality. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm a tough guy bullshit. Like, I'm just talking about the real world. I'm just talking about like the real world how men act. I'm not acting like a tough guy. I understand the rules. And that's why I don't get hit in public and why I never had to hit somebody, because I interact with men who know boundaries. That's it. Okay? Men keep men in check. That's why you shouldn't be hit at you talking shit about his girlfriend of like 5 years. You're trying to be antagonistic. You're going after basically somebody with wifey status, just like your friends do, because they're not real men. All right? Respect is number one, and you never go after a man's wife. It's crazy that I have to say this. So basic. It's fucking incredible. You never go after a man's wife. It's pathetic. It's just loser shit.
I only hope you provide more value to your extremely large audience. The powers of Satan are taking over the West in real time, and I hope that everyone watching doesn't contribute to it anymore.
Cool. Power of Satan. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break and then we're going to get to this video. Okay, well, here's round two. It's apparently the conversation that MoistCritikal has with Sneako. Let's see how it goes.
I know it's April 1st, but I'm not fooling. The title is not a joke. I talked to Sneako, and I gotta be honest, I had butterflies in my tummy. I was more excited to talk to him than I would be to talk to Santa Claus. Now, I know this will be coming as a shock to a lot of you, a bit of a jump scare, so I hope you're sitting down so it doesn't knock you off your feet. Sneako and I have not been on the best of terms recently. We've tried our best to keep it a secret and handle it behind closed doors, but unfortunately, it's bled into the public eye, and you know what? By golly, I'll say it with my whole chest for all to hear. We just haven't liked each other. We haven't seen eye to eye on many things, so our internet beef has become this fine Wagyu steak. It's been this very tasty, juicy bit of drama between the two of us, and today, it finally boiled over.
The tone of this video is just so bizarre to me. I don't know. It comes off as a little cringe, but okay.
And we had a conversation, and I want to show you some clips from it. He actually asked me to record, so don't think that this was some kind of one-party consent thing where I pulled.
So where's like the rest of it? Does it exist? Just some clips from it? Where's the whole thing?
Pulled the wool over his eyes and pulled his fucking pants down to surprise him with a recording. He had actually asked me to, and I want to show you how this went, because it was actually a very interesting conversation we had. I want to tell you how we got there. It's because last night I noticed Sneako was raving about cuties on Twitter.
It would have been nice if you just played the whole thing, but
yet again, talking about how much he loves it and how he'll always defend it, but then said that I wouldn't debate him on it. And this little nugget of cringe had me scratching the hair on my chin, confused. I wouldn't debate you on it. I would actually love to hear your side of things on how you could possibly excuse the blatant sexualization of the child actresses in the film. Now,
I mean, it's already been established, right? This conversation is very short. Oh yeah, it's supposed to have a greater meaning about the over-sexualization of children, apparently in Western society. Oh, okay. Well, I don't think that they should have used real children and sexualized them because it's gross. It's a pretty quick and simple conversation there.
I'm not a debater. I actually am not a fan of debates in general. I prefer just general conversations as opposed to these like gotcha and leading questions and traps and shit. I think that's not very conducive to actual understanding of different sides of arguments. So I don't debate, but I was very willing to have this conversation with Sneako, and I reached out to talk to him, and he was more than willing to talk about it. So we did. We talked about cuties and even talked about all of our general grievances with each other.
Whoa.
And this was a very different side of Sneako. I went into this expecting him to be his standard, unhinged, like very animated, cartoonish self that I see in all of his content on Twitter and Rumble, where he's doing these like temper tantrums and like throwing his ass in a circle and going wild, hog wild. But here, this was a very laid back, very calm and collected Sneako who was actually more than willing to concede on some of his points as well as see different sides of situations.
Yeah, you fell for it. So God bless. Listen, people are probably gonna. You might think that I'm being uncharitable, but realistically speaking, it's just a tale as old as time at this point. As Sneako he's just going to change the way he expresses himself based on like the way he needs to survive in like the online sphere. That's all it really boils down to. Hey, God bless you for falling for it, I guess, but you know, it's pretty transparent. I can understand why you might, considering. You know, I mean, I've been fucking covering Sneako, so you can kind of see it becomes very clear, but hey, let's do it.
And I didn't expect that. And I'm very appreciative of that pleasant surprise as well, because I went into this with pretty low expectations, but after finishing our talk, I'm actually pretty curious to see where Sneako goes next, because, like I mentioned, there are some things that he just fully admitted, like maybe he was guilty of doing similar things that he criticized others for, and that he was going to be repurposing his message and changing things around to make it more conducive to positivity. So overall, the whole conversation went in a totally different direction than I expected. Of course, he's still very passionate about some things, and we still fought on quite a few things. And the reality is there's just a lot of things that I don't see eye to eye to him on with some of the things he talks about. But overall, I really walked away with a very different impression of Sneako from this. Okay, now, I know I'm blue-balling you here, but one more thing that I think is important to mention. He has said that he's wanted to debate me over the last 2 weeks here. He even made this big hullabaloo on Twitter about how I ducked a debate with him on Aiden Ross' stream. Even though he had not replied to any of my DMs at that point, there was no debate scheduled between him and I. So that was just a blatant lie. I think he was just joking around about it, and it missed the mark because people actually thought that I was avoiding him. But he's not wrong in the fact that I really didn't want to have a conversation with him over the last 2 weeks because all of it was extremely geared towards hurt feelings. At least that's how I interpreted a lot of his statements. It seemed to focus more on me saying, "P.U., you stink," and him taking it as, he's canceling me. There's not a whole lot of productive conversation that can come from that with me just explaining over and over again that I'm just
I really wish you would have just played the full conversation without all the priming of the audience. It would have been a lot better.
Insulting you, and that's the simple brass tacks of it. But over the last 48 hours, it really does feel like he's had this come to Jesus moment where he's recognized that I was never canceling him. I was making fun of him. He even issued an apology about bringing up my girlfriend and stuff like that, and has recognized that he has been off the mark on a lot of things recently as well. He also, apologized for being a cuck, which was a wild thing. He talked about how cuckoldry was a mistake. So it looks like he was never okay with it, even though for a time he did say everyone should try it. It looks like he's changed his perspective on that and now looks back on it with a lot of regret, which isn't surprising since those insults were not some of his favorite to keep hearing. So that's not really a discussion we had. I think and have always said, whatever happens between consenting adults in the bedroom is fine. As long as no one's getting fucking hurt, there's no, victims, it's consenting adults, you're good to do whatever makes you happiest. The reason I always talked about the cuckoldry is, one, because fucking hilarious that a lot of his beliefs now go very much against his past of being open to watching his girl get fucked in front of him by multiple men on a couple occasions. And two, it was illustrating a bit of ridiculousness with him being the moral authority on healthy relationships when he himself was in a very confusing one that he wasn't proud of, yet still preaching that people should do it anyway. That was the whole point behind it. I wasn't trying to kink shame like a lot of people started accusing me of. If you want to be a cuckold, then be a proud one and be okay with it and comfortable in your own skin about it. So it has seemed like he's been more receptive to real talk, and that's what we had. So let me go ahead and show you now. The first thing we talked about was cuties.
This discussion with you about cuties since I dropped that video back in 2020.
How time flies, man. Well, better late than never.
So, have you seen the movie?
Yeah, so you mentioned you saw my video, so you know I didn't finish the movie. I physically couldn't. I found it just to be completely repulsive.
Haven't you seen a lot of other movies that have repulsed you before? I watch horror movies. I watch movies that are provocative quite a bit.
Yeah, but there's
something about kids that should be more repulsive. I don't know. You know, when you do like an act of somebody getting killed in a horror movie, you know, contrary to what I used to think when I was a child, they don't actually kill the person. Meanwhile, when you're doing a video about sexualizing children, whether you're teaching a message or not, you know, you're still showing kids sexualized. So it doesn't sound like a particularly fun time, you know. You should know this at the very least. This is where I forgot. So Sneako's been talking to Destiny too much, and now he knows how to debate well. And I know that's not a compliment to Destiny, because being a good debater or saying you're a good debater isn't necessarily a good compliment, right? It just means you know how to sell your point, not necessarily that your point is right. But since I agree a lot with Destiny, he must be right. Am I right, guys? Anyway, that's kind of the energy that I'm getting here. Oh, well, you know, you watch horror movies. Isn't that the same as children shaking their ass on the camera? Oh, fucking good point, man. I'm shitting and coming.
This is something I feel isn't being recognized. There's a difference between being repulsed by fiction, which is like horror movies, you know, that's not real, and being repulsed because there's real children doing sexual things. You can't fake that. The actresses were 11 to 13 years old. They were twerking. There was some very gross scenes in there, and like the cameras would zoom in on their chest and their ass and their crotch. Like, that's a very different kind of repulsed.
That's what we agree on. I don't agree that those scenes are good. I don't agree with the sexualization of children. I defend the movie because I defend the morality of the movie. And I think that most people that were disgusted have seen those clips or didn't watch the whole movie like you. So that movie was taken out of context quite a bit. People don't really see the moral of the movie, which is defending Islamic values, and also pointing out the very real problem that young girls have going on social media and doing these dances. I agree that it's disgusting. I agree that those scenes are... It
does have a real problem. I think that TikTok is part of the problem as well, right? Like, it is. You know, it definitely is a problem of kids going around sexualizing themselves. I would like to point out another problem, though. Is that, like, when you look at the data, Western countries despite the fact that this is an issue, tend to have the highest ages of consent in the world. And they need to have higher ones, by the way. 16 is way too low. Okay. But when you look at other countries, understand that, like, yeah, they don't have a TikTok sexualization problem, but they do have an oppression problem for women, LGBTQ people, and even children with like incredibly low ages of consent. It's just something to bring up. And there's problems in every single, sphere, whatever you want to call it. But, I'd say ours is a little bit better. Okay, because we have freedom of speech. And gay people don't get killed on the virtue of their homosexuality and whatnot. I'm just saying, is like the Islamic countries or Islamic values are not. Let me speak more clearly. Islamic values are not the only values that have been used to oppress gay people, trans people, and women historically. Christian values have done the same exact thing, but countries that, like Islamic-led countries, tend to have more oppression to women and LGBTQ people, and that's just not something that I'm on with. I am against the sexualization of children, obviously, on like TikTok and shit. And they have to figure that stuff out, absolutely. But let's not pretend that like the culture is. I don't know. Personally, I prefer Western values. Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. God bless you, but that's just me personally.
Repulsive, but I think you could be repulsed by TikTok and pretty much what young girls are doing on social media every single day as well. I think that people outraged at that film should also be outraged at everything that girls are doing now on Instagram, TikTok, and all these apps.
Well, see, but here's the thing. So let's break it down to the very bare essentials. Can children consent?
No, obviously not.
Can children consent? No, they can't.
So then why do you think it's excusable to exploit them after having them sign up for this film? If you admit they can't consent, how can they possibly give the okay to be shaking their ass and having a camera all up in their shit while they're doing sexual things, like that scene where she takes a picture of her vagina, the scene where they're doing literal, like, toying around with cam sites, like, that's very different. Like, no one is disputing the message, right? It's
I agree with the intention of the movie. I don't think that those scenes are good.
Sure. I mean, I get what he's saying. He's right about that. I will say that, like, it's an unfortunate reality. And if you talk to women, that there's a lot of younger girls who will go onto like campsites and shit and like Omegle and like show their tits to older men. It's the man's fault 1,000% for being on there searching for it. But we are afraid to have this conversation, which means we're afraid to educate young girls on why they shouldn't be doing this, because we have to, and young boys probably do it too. But I've talked to multiple girls where they're like, yeah, when I was younger I would do this, and it's like, you kind of have to. If we don't acknowledge that it's a problem, then we can't acknowledge the solution, right? So
that's what we completely agree on. But I think that was an important movie to point out how many people get sucked into this world. I think that was needed. That movie was needed to be made. And I also don't think that movie encouraged.
Well, not for nothing, but since the movie completely missed its mark, I don't know that it had the impact that people think it did. But okay, whatever. I don't really care about the movie's cuties. So.
Pedophiles to go and cite and look at these girls. I think that they're more likely to go on TikTok and find girls that they're attracted to. I don't think that this really attracted people to these girls.
Well, it's not like I'm here arguing that this movie created pedophiles, right? But what it did is it delivered a film that they would watch for totally different reasons than the message. Again, the message isn't something that I or pretty much anyone has an issue with. The message is, like you mentioned, the social media poisoning them, making them do the sexual things, which is a problem. But this movie contributes to it since it still used real children to sexualize them, to showcase it. Jesus. That's the issue. You didn't need it to be children.
I don't think it contributes to it, because when you see girls doing this on TikTok, they don't know.
I don't see girls doing it on TikTok, though, is the thing, right? The only people that would are going to be the pedophiles. They would go and...
He's right about that, dude. You're probably only going to get it into your feed if you are attracted to kids or something. Absolutely. What I do see, though, is that there's a lot of young people glorifying OnlyFans for especially like for young girls, and I think it's a really bad idea. If you want to do it, like, do your thing. I believe in that, like, type of freedom. I think that most people who do sex work in any capacity is out of necessity because of lack of other opportunities. And women can go towards that sphere. I want to die. I'm tired of this fucking bullshit. But what I will say is that, like, there seems to be a problem where it's like, yeah, young girls, go do OnlyFans and you can make all this money and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that, like, it's not a good idea. If you've ever watched some of these other, like, I've watched a video about another girl who was talking about her regrets with it. And she's like, when I first started, I was making a lot of money. People signed up. They thought I was attractive, but it wore me down. Like, it just wore me down. I was selling my body. And you realize that, like, after the first month or two, people unsubscribe because you have to do more than just show your butt or picture in your panties. You have to like spread your entire fucking. You have to spread it all. You have to go fucking ballistic, and it kind of gets to that point where it's like once you're there, like damn, you know, you got to go nuts. And so, like, yeah, there's a lot of problems with it. You know, it doesn't help. And if like from 18 to like 22, you're doing OnlyFans, and then you fall off, and it's like now you want to go to a real job. I'm like, what's your work experience? Oh, for 4 years, I showed my pussy. What job is that gonna help you get? You know.
And search that out. This movie was advertised on Netflix.
No, that's not true. Every time I don't have TikTok on my phone, but once in a while before I was banned, I would go on there, and the first 3 videos would be the same thing that you see on Cuties. And that's why I uninstalled the app. That's why I refuse to have it on my phone.
That's a little bit of a self-report, brother. I don't know. I've never gotten children masturbating or whatever the fuck you're talking about on on TikTok. Okay, I usually get dumb, cringe fucking memes. All right, really dumb memes all the time. There's this one black guy, and his whole video is just for some reason replacing the last word in every movie title with the N word with the hard R, and for some reason that comes across my For You page, which might be a self-report too. It's terrible, but I do get a little bit of a laugh and go, damn. And I wish I didn't. But he's abusing his powers. Okay, that's all I'm trying to say here. But I've never gotten that on there. Never had that problem. So
because it's directing you to those images.
Which is a problem. I'm not disagreeing that's a problem. But that doesn't make this
we
film...
agree, but we just disagree that I think the movie was important to point out a flaw. Personally, I never empathized with girls being directed to that site before I saw that movie. That really made me understand what it's like to be a girl and grow up in that age.
And that's why you routinely disrespect women, or that makes a lot of sense based?
I think we're getting... Yes, we agree that it is disgusting, but you are excusing it because you believe it highlights a very real issue, which it does, but it contributes to that issue by using children. They didn't have to use kids.
Sure.
Like, you recognize that, right? They could have
used...
they
didn't have to use kids. But I also look at the director, and I look at the moral of the movie, and I don't think that it was anything unsafe, and I don't think that the director had any bad intentions making it. So maybe it shouldn't have been as sexualized, but I defend the morality of the movie, and I also defend the effect that it had on me. When I watched that made me have a new perspective.
Okay.
But do you see why that kind of... Jesus, sorry, that was my cat. Do you see why that's kind of concerning to hear, though? Because in the time that I watched that film, there were unreal amounts of sexual scenes. In fact, the majority of the movie was them doing like the dance routines where they're smacking each other's ass, zoomed in on them shaking their ass in the camera. There's that scene where a security guard's like, what are you girls doing here? And they're like, we're dancers. He's like, prove it. So they start twerking for him, and he's like, oh, great, get in here. Like, that is a problem, no matter how you spin it. Again, the message is fine. There was never anything wrong with the message, and maybe the intention of the director was...
How would you tell the director to convey the message in a different way?
You would just not use children. You could deliver the same message, and you don't use children. The problem is
I don't think it would be effective. I don't think it would be as effective. It's unfortunate that it's misinterpreted, but you couldn't be able to have that effect and show how provocative and how dangerous it is without using kids. Yeah, of course, the shots probably did not need to be that bad.
I personally just wouldn't live and die on this, but...
When I watched that, I was absolutely disgusted. And like I said, it changed my perspective. And what I'm surprised about is that you are against wokeness, because everything that your content is about, it doesn't seem like you've ever directed any energy towards how dangerous wokeness can be, which is exactly what that movie's about. It's saying how important Islamic values are in the face of wokeness. It's about...
Listen, I'm going to be real with you. Woke people are very annoying. They annoy the shit out of me. I'm tired of all woke people, okay? And I talk about it all the time. But the problem is Sneako thinks that everything that is progressive is woke, right? He thinks before, like, LGBTQ people are bad. Like, they're not. LGBTQ people aren't woke. They've been around forever. Like, they just want to be left alone, okay? They are. Some people are going to look crazy. There's, like, this fucking book that has, like, it's supposed to be like a coming-of-age story. It was in some libraries. I think some, like, school libraries for, you know, what do they call it? School libraries, yeah. And, like, on one of the pages was, like, a fucking person spread. Like, it was a picture somebody drew of somebody spreading wide. I was like, yeah, that should be banned. And people are, no, we need to. See, that's what I consider like wokeness. When you have people go on TikTok and say that you're fatphobic if you won't fuck a fat person, that's wokeness. That's ridiculous. But that's not everything, okay? That's not everybody. And it's annoying that everybody who's more conservative leaning, and Sneako is, there is this obsession with wokeness. Everything is woke, and there's this obsession with LGBTQ people, and there are like no other policies getting pushed through, and it's just anti-wokeness, and it's just another form of wokeness. It's all it is. It's obnoxious. We can sit here and say like, hey, listen, I don't think That this I don't think sexualized books are appropriate. I don't think that young girls should be fucking twerking on TikTok. I think social media in general is very toxic for people's minds. Sneako is a case in point here. Right, even right now he's cosplaying somebody who knows what the fuck he's talking about. But we need to stop with this wokeness fucking. It's the same thing as like the Trump hysteria. Like, there were things to criticize with Trump, but like when they were doing the Mueller investigation, which was reasonable to do the investigation every day, what did CNN do? Oh, Trump, the fucking Trump watch, he's guilty every day. And then what happened? What happened? The investigation found that he was guilty. And then they were like, It's the same thing. Like, it's just like it's just obnoxious to me. I don't know. Let me just continue.
Out of a Western African family, Islamic, they go to France, completely woke country that's now being burned alive, and women are running around topless. Wokeness has consumed France, and it's pointing out a proper solution to this problem, which is embracing Islamic values.
Sure.
Who was the director of the film? Do you know?
I want to be really clear. I don't know. Like, personally, there are definitely going to be things to criticize with France. I don't know if there's a topless problem in France. I'll have to go investigate. But if we look at like quality of life, France is doing much better than a lot of other countries, and it's nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with resource acquisition, right? Am I using the right word? But let's just focus on providing that better, I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
Her name is Maminu Doucouré. Maminu Doucouré, I think that's her name. She's a Western African woman, and she moved to France. So I imagine that she had a very similar experience, and she was trying to portray what it was like growing up.
So the message of the movie is about social media, and almost exclusively. She directed the film based on seeing some children in a neighborhood doing sexual dances and wondering, how did it get to that point? This isn't okay. So the movie was supposed to be about how does a child get to that point, and it's about how social media is poisoning them, and they're constantly comparing themselves. They're seeing these things, so they're putting on makeup and they're doing sexual shit. And
Okay. Wait, hold on. If that's true, if this person moved to another country and saw like this hypersexualization, and they thought it was a problem, why did they make the movie? Why didn't they make the movie a documentary, like an actual? Was it a? Because I don't think it was a doc. Was it a doc? It wasn't a documentary, right? It was like a film. It was Cutie's a documentary? Because I don't think it was. Right? I don't think it was an actually documentary. Like, it was all staged. Yeah, it was a portrayal. Written, directed by wow, this film is in short cast. Okay, yeah, it has a cast. Okay, so she was inspired to write the script upon seeing a suggestive youth talent show one day. So she saw a talent show one day, which which, by the way, like beauty pageants is what I'm assuming she's referring to, which need to be called out. And frankly, God bless her for that, because we don't talk enough about like how sexualized beauty pageants are and how terrible they are, not even just from a sexual perspective, but also from like an eating disorder perspective. My sister is actually a beauty pageant winner. It's a half sister. She's a beauty pageant winner in my area. When she was younger, she was a child beauty pageant person. I remember I met her for the first time when I was like 14. Right, that's when we all were able to, like, we found out that we existed. And so it was my mom, her mom, myself, and my sister. It's like the first meeting, I think it was. And in the first meeting, her mother, who routinely puts her in beauty pageants, looks at me and goes, you have such a cute face. You'd look so much better if you weren't so fat. Okay, now listen, maybe that's true. Okay, I could stand to lose a few pounds, and I have been actively trying. My point is, though, do you think that that's something that's healthy for children to be hearing? And if she's saying that to somebody who she barely knows, what do you think she's saying to her own kid? Okay. Beauty pageants are a problem. That needs to be eradicated. But that doesn't mean that it's about the entirety. It doesn't mean that the entirety of Western culture is causing this problem. This is a product of too much freedom of speech, guys. Okay. But let's see. She's inspired from her experience as a Senegalese French person. She said she intended to criticize the hypersexualization of prepubescent adults. With over 18 months of research, the script was won an award. Okay, fair enough. I see what she was doing. Yeah. Does she go back to like some kind of Islamic lifestyle, or does she just not over sexualize herself? Anyway, I think a regular documentary would have been a little bit more effective. I don't want to have to watch this movie to do research, but I feel like he's over exaggerating the ending of this. It seems like from what I'm reading in like the Wikipedia, it seems like she does these overly sexualized things, And then she stops doing it. And I don't know that she just goes back to like traditional Islamic values. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. But whatever. Anyway, let's continue.
Really understand why or the consequences of it. It's not a critique on wokeness, though. Of course, anything in the art field you can derive your own meaning from. I recognize that almost everything you encounter in life...
It seems like an intended critique of over-sexualization of like beauty pageants. It doesn't necessarily seem to be tied to Western values. The problem is that like maybe it is that Sneako's not a good person to be talking about this because he's so anti-woke that he'll interpret anything in like to the best of his ability. Sneako's not the kind of person who looks at information and draws a conclusion. He's the kind of person who has a conclusion drawn and then looks for information that he feels supports it. So
if you tie back to either cancellation or wokeness, but in this film in particular, this is a movie I really feel conflicts hard with your ideology. Under no circumstances should children be sexualized is where I stand. Do you disagree?
There's a lot of things in movies, like I don't agree with incest in Star Wars, but Star Wars has incest scenes. I don't agree
but that's
with
not
incest, but it's portrayed.
It's not real incest, though. This is real children being sexualized. It's not fake. These are 11.
Agree.
And not for nothing, even if like the character Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, even if they were brother and sister for that movie, they're adults who can separate these things, right? Like children are a little bit different, so you can separate the art from the artist. Not really for kids though. It's a little different in my opinion, but
we agree. But I'm defending the point of the movie.
You can defend the point of the movie, but you can still condemn the movie itself. The point can stand on its own 2 feet, right? Like there is a problem which you recognize with kids being sexualized, in specific on TikTok. That is a problem in and of itself. But you can still condemn this film for contributing to the thing it's supposed to speak out against, which is sexualizing children, which you have admitted it does. And it didn't need to, like you said.
Sure.
That is the
so
problem.
Maybe they shouldn't have used child actors, but I agree with the point of the movie. But how do you think that the point could have been conveyed in a better way? Do you think should they have used 18-year-olds to play 11-year-olds?
That's exactly what most movies have done for a long time. A quick example is The Last of Us using Bella Ramsey to portray a 14, 15-year-old. Like, you can do that, and that's a lot more.
Wait, really? How old is Bella Ramsey? Wait, I thought she was like she's 19? Wow. Okay, good point. I thought that she was like fucking 12. Yeah, that would have been much more ideal. They find that girl that's on TLC, use her or something. Wow, I didn't even know that. She just like looks young for her age. Interesting. Okay, yeah, good point. Shit.
Acceptable because there is no longer a victim. Like you had said, children can't consent. These kids could never fully consent to being sexualized in this film like this.
I would argue that when they use 30-year-olds and 27-year-olds to play high schoolers, like in Euphoria and like in 13 Reasons Why, it actually sexualizes kids more because we start to mature high schoolers and we think of them in a different way.
Maybe. I think when I've watched Euphoria and it's interesting. But one thing is that you know that they're not actually kids, right? So like it makes it more palatable. Euphoria is like an over dramatization of like somewhat normal sexualization that goes on in like high school. Kids are obnoxiously, unfortunately, horny. It's gross. I don't like to think about it, but it's kind of the reality. But either way, where there's a difference between like portraying 17 and 18-year-olds, I'd say, versus like 13-year-olds. I don't know. I'm kind of with Charlie on this one. They could like look for actors or actresses that look that young is a good idea. Right, because then they're still adults. It's not about like what somebody looks like. It's about like the mental capacity of that individual. So
people in their 30s and their late 20s get addicted to Euphoria and they have ideas and they start romanticizing teenagers in a different way because they don't use actors in that way and they make them look more mature.
Sure. Okay.
That's a completely separate conversation you can make arguments for, but that doesn't work here because it sexualizes already real children, right? So I think you're getting hung up on like the what ifs and like whataboutisms on other sides, but the core doesn't change. So let me give you an example. It is realistic to use kids for the message, right? Because it's about kids. Well, what if the child was naked doing the vagina pic? If they showed the kid's vagina, is that now too far? It's still realistic.
That's too far. So there's 2 ways the movie could have been changed to be more effective and that people would understand the message. 1, they could have used child actors and they should not have been sexualized in that way. Or 2, they could have been 18 plus and it could have been sexualized, but then it wouldn't have been as effective. One of the 2 should have changed. I agree.
Okay.
Should just use little people. Everybody wins, okay? Because they CGI the Oompa Loompas. Am I right?
Do you think there's like levels to sexualization of kids that is acceptable and then unacceptable?
No, it's never acceptable to sexualize children, but
then we agree. So then can we then say, since this film sexualized children, I can't really champion the film. However, the message is okay. Like I like the message.
Let's see that.
I agree completely. But the reason I defend that movie is because I think everybody just saw those scenes and looked past the message and looked past the good moral that the director had when making it.
That could very well be the case for some people, right? 100%.
I would say most people who hate the movie haven't seen it. Most of the people accusing me of being a pedophile for defending the movie haven't seen it, have no idea what it's about. They've just seen those scenes.
But they're also still not wrong for being upset about those scenes. Like, can you recognize that?
I think they should be more upset at the problem. I think people should direct that anger instead of calling me a pedophile.
Not for nothing, I agree. The problem is that like nobody does care, and for a different reason. Like I want you to understand something, okay? Especially now, and I know I'm going off into a little bit, but like we're very concerned about drag shows and kids going to those. I agree, bro. Like we shouldn't be having those. But it's interesting that like there have been a couple of instances of like sexualized drag shows, and people are losing their fucking minds. Good, but nobody gives a shit about 13-year-old, and that's when a grown gay men are doing like dances and kids are brought there by the parents, but nobody's shitting themselves over like 12 and 13-year-old girls wearing like fucking bathing suits with their ass hanging out at like beauty pageants. People don't like, they have to care more about that. Okay, I'm just saying, like conservatives don't care either. Care about both. Okay, they're both disgusting. Okay, sexualizing or putting kids in those areas is gross. Just saying.
On the internet, they should look at the system that turns these girls into sexual objects at a young age and be more angry at that. That is the real issue. That's the bigger problem at large.
They do, though. It's not mutually exclusive, like where it's one or the other.
Do they? Do you?
Do I what? Talk about the problem?
Do you direct that anger? I see you.
Now, from here, we started branching off into other conversational topics, but I do want to go ahead and give a little wrap up here. After talking to him about it, it really feels like he sticks to his guns just out of pure stubbornness because he's defended it for so long. He's unwilling to forfeit on the point, even though he can clearly recognize that the sexualization of children is a bad thing. And since the movie sexualizes children, it is full stop a bad thing. He can't separate the message and applaud the message without applauding the whole film, which is a problem. He repeatedly calls it his favorite movie and how important it is, but he's only referring to the intentions with the message, and the message is fine, but the film itself is not fine. It wanted to speak out against social media, poisoning these children and having them do sexual things, and it's horrible. The film...
Yeah, a quick little synopsis of it, the plot, it's not about that. It's about basically... It seems to be about like talent shows, or beauty pageants, sexualized beauty pageants and talent shows, which is definitely a problem. So it doesn't seem. I don't know if it really talks about social media. Maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Whatever. I don't know why I'm
wanted to call that out and point a light at how horrible it is. But doing so, they used real 11 to 13-year-olds and actually sexualized them.
Cool.
Thus, it's a fucking horrible thing that they produced. And by my definition, and many people's definition, is child porn. That shouldn't be defended by any means. Now, I wish Sneako would be able to just separate the message from the film, because the message is fine. That is something that you can applaud, but not the film itself.
Follow the narrative that's popular on social media, but I don't see you ever directed at the problem. Do you agree that wokeness is one of the biggest problems that corrupts kids nowadays?
Define wokeness.
What is wokeness?
Wokeness is the liberal ideology, is feelings over facts. I identify this way because I feel like it is. There's no gender, nothing matters. I do as I want. Everything that's promoted on social media.
There's so much there because it's such a misrepresentation. I think that we have a huge problem with some of those things, kind of. First of all, there's very few people saying there's no genders. Most people are like, oh, there's guys and girls, and then there's non-binary and trans people are valid. Like, whatever, that's fine. There are people going too far, sure. There are people who lose motivation. There are people who are complaining about life despite not actually living it, sure. I wouldn't say it's the biggest problem. It's an annoyance and it's a perturbance, but it's not even close to like the number one thing. Like realistically speaking, we're all so terminally, like the biggest issue right now is like wealth disparity. Like that's a real issue. Like wealth disparity is a massive issue. Gun violence is a massive issue. Okay, these are real issues. Homelessness rates, those are real issues. A lot of this stems from lack of financial access. Those like that. This really doesn't matter. Like woke, it's really not the biggest issue right now. It's like a rich people not paying. Like it sounds so simple, so you're probably like, oh, whatever. Like it sounds so simple, but that is like a real problem. None of this stuff, wokeness doesn't matter. It's not even close to the most aggressive thing destroying us, right? We understand this. Like the reason people are more angry is because they have less money to provide their children with things and themselves with things. People are more and more angry because they're seeing billionaires, CEOs, like people from Starbucks, shutting down unions when they could pay people better. That's what is really plaguing us. And everything else is a distraction. Everything else is a distraction. Okay, you're looking for something to blame, and since you don't want to criticize millionaires because you want to be one, you criticize fucking weirdos on the internet. That's really it. Those people are a problem. It's fine to call them out and make fun of them because that's what we do for content. But if you actually want to do something that matters, and maybe I should take my own advice, start talking more about those things. Okay, start talking about like gun violence. Okay, start talking about real shit that actually matters instead of like the obnoxious fucking idiot on TikTok that nobody agrees with and everybody makes fun of, that you pretend has like, that is like the biggest fucking like has the most impact of anything else in the entire world, because it just really doesn't. Like we want to pretend it does, but it really doesn't. All right, the social media is like it heavily it exacerbates feelings more than anything else. That's the reality. The facts over feelings. I mean, come on, you're not exactly the most factual person. Let's just be real. Okay, this is the person who, despite the fact that there are robust COVID statistics, this was like a year or so ago when he talked to Destiny, but he still believes this. Robust statistics proving that COVID was a threat, and it created like an excess death rate of like 3 million in America, or was it a million in America? Millions, we'll say, in America. I haven't looked at the data in a while, but it was a lot. Excess death rate, more than usual, because we track these things with data. He says it doesn't exist and it's all fake. But then when Nick Fuentes says that Black and Hispanic people are just biologically inferior because of their IQs, he's like, oh, well, I kind of disagree with that, but can you show me some data? He picks and chooses what data. And if you notice, the only difference between these two things is that the COVID data aligns with what he would consider wokeness, and the racism data aligns with anti-wokeness. And he's much more charitable to anti-wokeness than wokeness, or what he thinks is wokeness. The COVID vaccine was fine. I was apprehensive about getting it. I needed it so my wife could keep her job. And I said, if we're going to do it, I'm going to do it. We got one shot. We never got the booster. But if you do, like, whatever, I understand, like my mother did. She's old. My uncle died to COVID. So we're all a little bit more worried about it because it's real. I worked through COVID in a bus company, disinfecting buses through COVID. People I worked with died during COVID. They died to COVID. I disinfected 200 buses a day with my crew who were actually valuable. Right, as who I am right now, who Sneako is, who MoistCritikal is, we are not valuable to society in any true way. What I used to do when I used to clean piss, shit, vomit, and blood off of public transportation buses to get people who didn't have money, or in the case of like some of the paratransit buses, get people who had disabilities and older people to and from places, that mattered. That actually mattered. Okay. This is a problem. You live online and you never had to experience the true backlash of these things. But people who work the real life in the real world, they lost friends, they lost family, they saw coworkers pass, they saw significant problems. Okay, and I had COVID at one point, and it was fucked. It was horrible. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, this whole wokeness thing, you're just being dumb. So,
you realize half of what you just described is how you've lived your life for the last year? Like feelings over facts, for example. You champion bullying. You think bullying needs to come back. I have never canceled you. Can you recognize that? I've actually always spoke out against deplatforming, if you've ever noticed. I spoke out against it.
No, but you were also disingenuous. When I called out the swordboard collage, you were like, these people just hurt my feelings. Most of those people actively advocated for my cancellation.
Nick is not green is the only person.
True. That's not true. Ethan Klein celebrated and clapped when I was banned and said, good. Fine.
Well, that's not advocating for it. Listen, I didn't advocate for it, but now that he got banned, good. You deserve it. I don't give a shit. Like, you got banned. I would never advocate for that or say you should get. Well, I never when it was happening, I defended him from the Nick is not green thing partially. But when he got banned, it's like, okay, you deserved it. Like, you were being a fucking obnoxious asshole. You were sexually harassing basically a coworker. Like, if you worked in the real world, you'd understand how these things are comparable. But since you've never worked a real job, you don't understand that. Like, you got justifiably banned. You got multiple warnings. You didn't take them. Then you ban evaded. And, like, that's life. You should have stopped fucking around. So
finally, this misogynist is banned. What happens on the internet, I understand. It's good to have back and forth. Bullying is good because it makes you have to develop your character in a different way. That's not why I was.
No, bullying's not good. Most people who are bullied have lower outcomes in life. We don't need bullying back. We never needed bullying. What we do need back is the ability to express ourselves bluntly and respectfully. I'm a blunt guy, and there's going to be times where I'll say something that might sound a little more mean than it actually is, but I don't mean it to be. I say things respectfully. That's what we're missing, people like having a little thicker skin and like being a little bit more fair to each other and empathetic and going, okay, I know he didn't mean it this way. That's simple. Not that big of a deal. That's what we need. We don't need bullying. We don't need people to get bullied. Thicker skin doesn't mean we need more bullying. It just means that people need to actually be able to like hear somebody speak and understand differences in the way that people speak, which can happen for a multitude of reasons, like basically where you grow up or some kind of a culture. Like, I had a like my bosses, for whatever reason, they were some of them would be nicer. The women tended to be a little nicer, and some of them were a little more blunt. You know, like my foreman or my direct boss when I was working, right? And it's probably cultural because one of them was Hispanic, but they were great guys who would fucking live and die on you if you were doing the right thing, and they always defended their own guys, and we were part of their own guys because we were like worked in the shop. But like I wouldn't take what they were saying personally if they were being, you know, like too like intense, because that's just the way that they are. That's what we're missing. We're missing like that empathy of like understanding differences in different people. Bullying is not good. It's just such a dumb fucking childish thing. You talk about bullying is good. Well, you basically just got bullied on the internet and cried about it and said it was a really bad thing for how long? And now you're saying it's good. So basically you agree, right? Advocating for somebody's deplatforming, that's bullying, no? Like, do you understand this, right? So like you don't make sense.
I was upset because a lot of these people were secretly happy or secretly hoping that I was going to get banned because they disagree with my ideology.
That's not what it is.
Why am
You're
I
an
on
asshole.
that list when I've only ever spoke out against the platform?
Because that's not what it is.
That seems like I'm there because I hurt your feelings.
Yep.
You didn't hurt my feelings. I thought it was funny because you do look like the rest of them.
You didn't hurt my feelings.
I don't understand how, but we're not here to get into the nitty gritty, I guess. Now, after talking to Sneako, it became clear that he really lives his life fearful of wokeness. He is constantly haunted by the woke boogeyman, like he's trapped in Luigi's mansion, but every ghost is woke. It's one of those things where every topic we started talking about always tied back to either cancellation or wokeness.
The problem is that Sneako is he's a victim. It's a victim complex. He needs to blame all of his problems in the world on wokeness. He was banned because of wokeness. People who don't like him is just because of wokeness. Everything's an infectious wokeness disease, right? That's all it comes down to, because he's a victim and he can't take personal accountability, right? That's what these spheres do, especially manosphere. They blame women or wokeness on their problems. They say women need to be held more accountable. And then when a man rapes a woman, they go, oh, well, you should have just picked a better man. This is what it is. This is what they it's not about wokeness. They don't like the fact that there's a society that defends people that they want to bully. That's it. That's where we're at. So, yeah. I don't know what it's a childish game that he's playing.
I think is pretty sad to be in that state of, I guess, unease, where he's always feeling as though woke is breathing down his neck. It's haunting his dreams like Freddy Krueger. But I'm going to get into that just a little bit more in a second. I do want to mention that collage where he's claiming it's not people that hurt his feelings, it's people that like advocated for his cancellation and shit, which again, I never did. I have only ever made fun of him and insulted him.
Because he's dumb and he's
or made fun of one of his friends that he
himself.
Felt the need to pick up the the White Knight's armor to defend the honor of. So I, under no circumstances, fit any of his definitions there, except for he thinks I look like the rest of the people there, which I have still not, to this day, seen a single living, breathing human being that has said there is similarity between anyone on that collage. Fucking 30 people on that collage, and there's no similarity amongst any of them. All types of different backgrounds, faces, hair, everything. Beliefs, it's not even fucking close. I don't know what he's seeing there. Maybe he's like face blind, so he sees everyone as like a default RuneScape character on Tutorial Island. I don't know. But anyway.
You're all white. That's pretty much the only and paler, I guess.
Back to the woke topic. I wanted him to define woke, and he gave me his definition of woke. To his credit, that was more than I would have expected, because last time I saw someone try to define woke, it was a fucking disaster. But he clearly does have at least some belief on what wokeness is and what it means to him. Now, he asked me if I think that's the biggest problem facing the youth today.
Not.
And I didn't really get to get a clear answer in there because he kept switching kind of rapidly. My answer is no. But I do think the biggest problem that's plaguing the youth today is the fact that kids feel forced to choose sides so early in life before their brains even had a chance to develop. Now, whether you want to subscribe to one side of the political spectrum or the other, you are always being forced down one path in this level of tribalism where you always have to blindly support that side and hate everything and everyone on the other. I think that shit sucks fuck. I think that's a horrible way of living life, and it leads to a situation that we see a lot now where people aren't friends with someone that don't share every single thing in common. For example, I have friends that I disagree with on many things, but we're still friends at the end of the day because we do have commonality in like personality and we have fun together. We don't need to agree on everything, and I wouldn't want that. I don't like echo chambers. And regardless of if you're on the woke side or the anti-woke side, you put yourself in an echo chamber no matter what. And both sides eat you alive if you so much as critique something about that side. It seems like it's constantly discouraged to think for yourself. You have to be fed your thoughts, whether that's being fed the thoughts that Sneako hates or being fed the thoughts that Sneako champions. It's always being fed your own their ideas, and then you try and adopt them as your own, and any kind of deviation from that is frowned upon in the communities. And in fact, if you decide you don't want to go down either of those paths and you try and like take information from both sides and form your own perspective, you get insulted for being a centrist. What does the meme enlightened centrist? There is no winning. The only
so really quick with this, because he can be right. Mostly, I would agree. There are some people though, Boogie. But what they do is they'll fence it. They're not centrists. They just like they don't want to like upset either side, so they just decide to like fence it, right? Like I would say that I'm a pretty moderate. I'm probably more moderate progressive, at least the way I express myself. Right? I have a lot of conservative family, like whatever. They're moderate conservative, and I respect them. And we all get together just fine. We're all good. We're all Gucci. But there are some people who just fence it and they give like centrists a bad name. But yeah, sure.
Winning move is not to play. That is what I feel the biggest problem is for the youth, is forcing them to make these decisions where they have to play.
I'm sorry, I don't to pause, but it's like a whole media thing. People are just constantly riling shit up. It's a whole entire like media like bullshit. Everything is sensationalized. Everything is riled up. That's why like Sneako thinks that he's like this super like he's figured it out. But like everybody says this like this is just typical conservative talking points. It's the same thing as like progressives who say that the world's going to end in 2030. It's a global warming. Like global warming is real, but like we're going to be okay. We just need to make reasonable change. That's what it comes down to. He's just the same thing as that. Like he's not saying anything profound. He thinks he's figured out wokeness. Like nobody will shut the fuck up about wokeness. He might as well be a conservative fucking. Like, he might as well work for the Daily Wire at this point. Like that's really where we're at. Like he's not saying anything like particularly profound. He's just constantly saying woke, 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 bad, 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 bad. That's all he says. There's nothing really going on there. There's nothing unique going on. Just the same like dribble over and over again. So
for one team or the other for their whole fucking life, and then regardless of which side you choose to go to, you still get eaten alive by members of the same community if you're somewhat out of line or thinking too hard for yourself. That's what I think the biggest problem is with growing up with social media and Twitter constantly plaguing people's minds.
And that's the thing is Sneako was like a little bit more like manosphere-esque, but he used to criticize Andrew Tate for being basically like a clown. Like he was like, oh, you just have all the glasses and the Bugatti and this are status symbols, blah, 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 blah. And then he got bullied probably by them. And then all of a sudden now he wears the same stuff. So he's a victim of that too.
Which in turn leads to everyone being miserable and mad at everything and everyone.
True.
And I also think it lends itself to making everyone more isolated and lonely, because then they lock themselves online, constantly fighting battles for their ideology on Twitter with fucking random bot accounts and actual nonsense every hour of every day. So that would be my answer to what is actually plaguing the youth.
Similar. Overall, and you can see it with the Fresh and Fit video that you still haven't corrected, where you called Fresh a virgin. A lot of it, and you see people that hate me, they're like, oh, this alpha male, this alpha male, this alpha.
Isn't that whole list just like a soy boy virgin list? Like, don't you do the same thing? You're acting like, okay, whatever.
Alpha male Sneako, and I've never once called myself that. I don't think I'm an alpha male. I advocate towards things that are conservative. I advocate towards Islamic values. That doesn't mean that I think I am an alpha.
Or you advocate towards like money and women, like no actual, like you don't like actual conservative values are like respectful. I mean, like a lot of people weaponize conservative values. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Most conservatives are just like, you do you as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. That's it. Like, that's all it is.
Alpha male.
I've never called you alpha male. You're talking to someone.
You've called my friends that. You've called Fresh and Fit that, and you haven't.
They call them. You are really hung up on fighting for the honor of Fresh and Fit. What I did was exactly what you preach. I made fun of him. Calling him a virgin is a joke. Do I think he's actually a virgin? Probably not. And it's not even a good joke. Like, that's the laziest joke of all time, which is why it wasn't like the crux of it. I just made it as a throwaway statement in the middle of a rant about his
Sneako is sensitive.
Ridiculous story. This is something that clearly weighs heavy on the mind of Sneako, where I insulted his friend, and my God, he has not let that go. This has become like his Vietnam, because it really seems to have taken a big toll on his psyche. He believes I owe a retraction and apology for making fun of him and calling out his story. And he says that
good,
I was wrong about all of it, even though, I'll play the clip in a moment, further into our conversation, he also admits he doesn't know if he actually fucked the 3 women that he claimed he did. Nobody knows. The story itself is outrageous. What they proved is he had deep...
Really? He said they verified it just in the video we watched before. Jesus, this guy can't keep a fucking story straight. Holy fuck. Wow. I love my friends so much. I love my friends.
DMs like a conversation with the NBA player, but that doesn't corroborate the whole story. There is no apology or retraction necessary. It is still such a fucking crazy story he told that probably wouldn't even happen in the most obscure Brazzers porno ever.
Because you don't correct your mistakes. You were wrong about Fresh and Fit. You were wrong about Andrew Tate, and
so,
you were wrong about the movie Q.
What? What is he wrong about Andrew Tate? Andrew Tate's a sex trafficker. He's admitted it. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I know. Oh, guys, please, can you make a video about him getting released? Yeah, here's your video, guys. In Romania, and when it comes to somebody getting arrested, unlike in like America, where you are detained until trial, or you can get out on bail, but he was denied that, they have to re-up every 30 days. And they felt that it was too long because they have a lot of information to gather for the case. And so they decided to put him on house arrest, even though he has a flight risk. And at this point, if he does try to run away, I would imagine that it would just be obviously an admission of guilt. That's where we're at. Okay, so there you go. There's your video, guys. I'm sure some people made 15-minute videos out of it, but that's literally all the information that you need.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you tied it back to cuties, but before we get back to that, how am I feel like I'm one of the very few people on the internet who corrects himself. Whenever I make a mistake, I do go and make a clarification. For example, I got something wrong with a content creator holding a stand-up competition that was absolute dog shit, and then someone came there and made fun of him, and I didn't know the full context. Once I got the full context, I went back and made a follow-up video to explain it.
No, that's not for nothing. That's not actually what happened, right? Like because I know exactly what he's talking about. It was a Def Noodles thing. This is not what happened. Charlie overcorrected because he didn't want criticism from the commentary community. Okay, Charlie was like, why is this guy even there? Like, blah, 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 blah. He's just there to bully the guy, basically, which was why he was there. But he was apparently invited on Twitter if you decided to obscurely look through that. But the guy showed up to troll the event and had and for somebody saying that he headlines the event, if you were actually showing up to headline the event, you would have waited your turn to talk, but he just got on stage, he started being rambunctious, blah, blah, blah. It was a shit show, right? He didn't really get it wrong. He got bullied by people in the commentary community, and he's flipped his script instantaneously. I'm not trying to be rude, but he just completely overcorrected and it didn't stand his ground. That was not that to me, that just sounds like he just didn't want to deal with the drama from that situation, and he completely walked it off. So, not trying to be rude, just being clear. That situation, he didn't get it completely wrong. The person was apparently invited, even though Def Noodles makes dumb jokes like such and such an employee was invited. This guy was invited, but he makes weird jokes. So maybe he was, but if you were invited, you don't show up and instantly troll the event. That's what he did. If he was supposed to be the closing act, like was supposed, then you don't instantly go there, rile up the audience, have somebody buy half the tickets so that you could just constantly chant "fuck Def Noodles," and then act rambunctious. He was there to troll the event. He mostly got it right. The little pieces he might have gotten wrong, he just didn't want to get bullied on the internet. Like, that's really what it comes down to. And it probably wasn't worth the heat. So he was like, "Oh, sorry guys, sorry." That's it. Frankly, that's really, but it doesn't really matter.
In more depth, with more clarity. I always do that. With Fresh and Fit, you're really hung up on this idea that he fucked 3 women that night after meeting an NBA player at a bar, and they exchanged Instagram information, and it turns out they were Eskimo bros with the same girl's pussy. Like, it's an outrageous story. Now, whether or not it's true, you haven't proved it either. Were you there watching him fuck? Were you cheering him on?
I was there. He showed the DMs with the basketball player. They did the whole podcast verifying the story.
The DMs.
You didn't correct it. Okay, so you didn't correct that. They did verify the story. You didn't correct it.
Did they have the basketball player? Did they have the basketball player and the 3 girls he fucked come on and be like, "Oh my god, he absolutely plowed the shit out of me. It was the best sex of my life"? Did he have?
That would never happen. But he did show the DMs with the basketball player verifying the story and that he did go to the party. Whether or not you want to believe he was with 3 women, I wasn't there either. I guess we're never going to know. But exactly. He did get the DMs from the basketball player.
To add on to this, if there's even small elements of that story that are somewhat true, I guarantee the whole thing is still embellished because the story he told is a work of fucking Tumblr fan fiction. It is not exactly how it played out under no universe, especially not for him. He is an extremely sensitive guy. He would probably have started crying after the first round of sex instead of going right to the next girl. Like, it is just not something that happened, and even if there is some elements of truth to the story, the whole thing is probably still not 100% accurate, and even still, the whole core of the video is the same. I was making fun of the guy.
Well, what's funny is that Fresh and Ab and Preach make fun of these guys for the same thing, and Sneako didn't have like a meltdown crybaby shit fit during that. He doesn't constantly bring it up with them. So it just seems like it's a selective thing. But, well, that
would still stay in.
It's interesting. I wonder how much of this is Fresh and Fit, like using Sneako to defend them without having to attach themselves to it, versus Sneako like actually wanting to defend them. You know what I mean? Like, because they don't respond to a lot of criticism. So I wonder if it's just them like, oh, I can have Sneako to speak against the narrative, and then we don't have to take any backlash for speaking against the narrative or look stupid, but we can basically utilize our friendship with Sneako to do that.
Entirely intact. Now I'm getting carried away with Fresh and Fit here. The conversational topic here was about not correcting things that I've got wrong. And I've actually prided myself on being willing to accept when I'm wrong. I think that's one of the most important qualities a person can have, and something that is very unfortunately absent from most people in the current day and age, where everyone has this complete reluctance and this like, ooh, yuckiness, I can't be wrong, I have to be perfect all the time attitude. I am more than willing to embrace and accept when I get things wrong, which is why I've made so many videos saying, I was wrong about this, got this wrong, this one was off, and adding more clarity to situations that I've covered when more information came out, or if something turned out to be fraudulent. I have done that for years, and I always have. In the case of Fresh and Fit, there is nothing to fucking correct. Now, I'm going a little out of order of our conversation because we kept bouncing back and forth between certain things, fucking pinballing around. But I'm trying to connect all the points together. So we're going to talk about the Andrew Tate thing in a moment. That's something we talked about for a little bit because Tate is very clearly someone that is a heavy influence in Sneako's life. But before then, I do want to focus on a couple other things we talked about, and that's him victimizing himself constantly. This is something I've called out, and I wanted to hear his perspective on it. A lot of the things you critique the woke for are ones that you actively partake in. Victimization, that's a big thing with the woke, right? Constantly playing the victim. Do you recognize how often you play the victim in terms of like, I'm being canceled, everyone's against me, you go on your Discord to talk more about it, even this morning talking and naming and shaming people that you think have slighted you as like a cancellation? You do the exact same things. Yep. Like you are also an SJW.
That's not victimizing, that's actively pointing out that literally every single streamer, every streamer, the entire internet, all of YouTube reacted to your video. I drop a response where I even apologize for going out of character and getting emotional, and then people...
Oh, cool. The Matrix has to get a
million views in 12 hours. Nobody watches my riddle. Some of them react and making me die in an animation, but nobody wants to see what I have to say.
Oh, the Matrix is silencing. What is he referring to? Is he referring to the video that he just dropped like 2 days ago? That has been searched. That is like the cause of this conversation because people talked about it like yesterday. People just didn't see it in a while. If he had a response, people are going to jump and come all over it because they want more. Because Sneako is like a fucking huge, like it's like it gets you views when you talk about it. Like, let's be real. So,
hey, I become a caricature on YouTube rather than somebody who has something to say. I become a meme because I am banned. That's not victimizing. That's actively pointing out how strong censorship is and how people on mainstream platforms can run with the narrative when you're not there.
Well, you're a joke, so.
The way you just justified it is a way many other people that you call playing the victim would also be able to justify things. The point is, when you are constantly whining and talking about how you're being attacked, it is still being victimized. I tried to point a mirror at him to point out that a lot of the things he criticizes others for is things that he actively does himself, and the one I focused on was victimization. Because the way he justifies, playing the victim is justification people have used in the past that he calls out. So I was just trying to illustrate that it's not only hypocritical, but also just kind of silly that he, and with all of his beliefs, still plays the victim and whines so much on Twitter. But that point wasn't really landing. We just kept kind of going in a circle about that one, so I don't want to focus on it too much here.
Okay.
It's disingenuous, and now we're having the debate, but you would rather DM and go and make this about drama. Oh, let me go and react and do more drama content rather than have a conversation.
But I never did that.
You're doing it now.
You have to remember that I didn't start any of this. You reacted to me telling jokes about your friend, and then had your audience tell me, and that went on for like 2 weeks, and so eventually I explained why I don't like you. And then when I did that, that was the only time I planned on talking about you. You went on stream with your gun to threaten me, and you kept it up for 3 months, adding me.
I didn't do that to threaten you. That was a joke about clips. You actually think I was threatening you?
Whether or not you were
victimized, you're gonna think, okay, you're gonna say victimized. You're gonna say I'm actively trying to threaten you by saying a clips joke on a stream.
I don't think you were actually coming after my life. It doesn't change the fact that for 3 months you continued to carry it on. I wasn't reacting to you. I wasn't even talking about you. This was a quick point that I think he did see my side on. He likes to make the claim that I was farming him for views and AdSense money, which couldn't be further from the truth. I never wanted to talk about Sneako. I never had plans of doing it. He kept poking and prodding me until
Yeah, it's doubtful. Everybody else is. I mean, listen. What are we doing here? My audience fucking shits and comes when we talk about Sneako, then I try not to post it as much as possible because it's boring as fuck. But when something like this happens, obviously I'm going to talk about it. But I don't think that Charlie is. I mean, he doesn't need to. Like at all. Like it's not even close to necessary for him to do shit like this.
I did. And then once I did,
the fact that he even had a conversation now with Sneako is like it shows like positive character because like he had no benefit from doing it. Frankly, it's from the way that Charlie, Moist, Penguins, I don't know what to say, is talking about this situation with like some of this commentary in between parts of this. It comes off to me as like he's falling for Sneako's bullshit, which is what it is.
He wasn't
a little
happy
too nice
that I was so mean in my response that for 3 months he did carry on this very one-sided beef until once again I decided to spit and play in the pig pen, and I made a tweet firing back at him after months of not even mentioning him, and then made a follow-up video. But it was never.
Yeah, that's because Sneako was trying to farm MoistCritikal the other way. Like he wanted this interaction. Like that's the part of the way he plays the victim. It's very clear that he wanted to have this interaction over and over again. The way he's constantly talking about MoistCritikal with like this like really like pathetic excuse of like I was defending my friend. He's just desperate to talk about him because it's the only it gives him views. And then once he got it back, he's like, you were bullying me. Like that's all it is. He's got like a fucking perpetual victim complex, bro. It's crazy.
part of my agenda to do that. And I think after explaining it to him, he did see that he was really the instigator. And I am glad that he did have that, realization after our conversation, that he was willing to accept that. I think that is healthy, that he was open to seeing that, okay, maybe I was wrong and his intention wasn't drama AdSense farming.
What do you think that I've said that I don't believe in?
So we'll use our beef, for example. You think I'm weak for not taking you up on a boxing fight. But on the same side of that coin, you won't take Brandon Buckingham up on that boxing fight. The whole point was, I don't stand by my beliefs because I won't fight you for it. Well, with that perspective, why wouldn't you fight Brandon Buckingham when you feel so strongly about your beliefs and he says the same things I do? Wouldn't you want to prove that you stand?
The first fight that I want to take would be against somebody, one, who has more clout than me. Two, I disagree with ideologically. I don't disagree with him ideologically at all.
But he says the same things I say about you.
So first of all, I don't believe any of this. It's because he's a pussy and he wants to only fight fights that he thinks he can win. That being said, your entire thing is because he doesn't have enough clout. You've literally just admitted that you are completely clout driven in your motivations for everything. You aren't going to get enough clout from the interaction, so you don't want to have the interaction. That's literally what you're saying here. It shows that you're fucking clout hungry like a little goblin. Guys, everybody just wants clout. By the way, I will only fight somebody for clout. What? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to tell you. You leveraged a false rape claim against a guy. A false rape threat claim against him. And then now you won't fight him because you're a pussy. You're a fucking loser. And you're probably afraid. And you feel like you could probably beat MoistCritikal because he's shorter or whatever.
This person has been obsessed for a long time. He's suing me for emotional distress. Personally, I don't care about this person, and there's no benefit for me to take my first fight with this person.
So then you believe
leverage a false rape claim against.
So then the reason I was banned on Twitter for challenging Hasanabi to a fight, one, because a lot of people want to see that. He's well known. He disagrees with me completely. There's a lot of tension for that fight. If I fought you, you have said a lot of things that are very negative about me. There's beef in the air. And
you realize that this is a clout goblin fucking behavior.
Some things that you probably wouldn't say to my face. It would be an entertaining fight.
But that's not the point. The whole point is you think I am weak and you keep harping on this for not taking you up on the fight. But you won't take someone up on a fight that's saying the exact same things I am. So it seems like the beliefs, you don't stand by that strongly if you're not confident you can make a spectacle.
Charlie, we both know you wouldn't accept a fight.
Right, I've made that very clear.
We both know. Even when I challenge you, we both know. It's to point out that a lot of people talk a lot of talk online and they never have to face the consequences because they stay in their room gaming all day. God. That was to point it out. Christ. Men are tired of seeing this back and forth internet drama.
So then why don't you fight Brandon Bucket? Nothing you're saying can't be applied to Brandon. You just want to talk shit on the internet. You don't play video games, but you just sit and I don't know, jerk off. Watch your fucking new girlfriends get cocked. I don't really know. What are you talking about? You're not making yourself look good. You're just justifying not fighting Brandon after desperately trying to fight somebody else, and you're admitting it's just part of it's for clout. You're also just afraid. That's really what it comes down to. You're fucking afraid because you know you're gonna get beat. That's what it comes down to. That's all it is. Jesus Christ, I'm getting my fucking tits turned.
Drama. They want to see people go and settle it. I've never said a word about this person that you're bringing up. I haven't said a word about him since last summer. I won't say his name publicly.
Yeah, you did. You literally you falsely claimed that he wanted to rape your girlfriend. What are you talking about? If that was last summer, who cares? You just the reason you haven't talked about it is because you're a fucking pussy that leveraged a false claim, and you say that people should go to jail for that, and you're completely hypocritical. That's why you won't fight him, because you know you look like a fucking moron. You're a fucking idiot. This guy's a fucking child. Holy fuck! I'm gonna get
I'm being sued for emotional distress. I'm leaving that alone. I have no problem with this person. We have gone back and forth. We're going back and forth on Twitter. People want to see it. People are tired of these keyboard warriors going back and forth. That was to point out the fact that men should not feel so comfortable talking a lot of talk on Twitter that they would never say in person.
Bro.
You made claims of Brandon Buckingham being a rapist and shit. Wouldn't that be something that you'd want to fight about at that point?
That was not a claim that I made.
Yes, it was.
I can't remember the specifics of it, but you did toss out the word rapist when talking about Brandon Buckingham. I don't remember the context it was used in, but you did mention it.
The context is that Brandon asked him to have a fight with him. He asked him as a friendly boxing match, and Sneako said, "Stop riding my dick." So Brandon Buckingham took that offensively, and then he went onto Instagram, did an Instagram story that was "Oh, Sneako, you fight me." It was a call out, I guess, in a similar way of Charlie, except he would have actually done it. Oh, fight me, and then talked about how his girl wanted to fuck him. The girl that probably did want to fuck him because that was a girlfriend that wanted to fuck other guys because Sneako wasn't enough for her. And he said oh, he's threatening to rape my girlfriend. He's threatening to rape my girlfriend. He's threatening to rape my girlfriend. Oh, that's what he did. By that logic, then you were threatening to rape that girl, Chad, with that video Nick is not green said that you should get banned for. Then I guess he must be right. That was rape, because that's like by the fucking your logic, that is it. Like, that's what we're talking about. If you think it's rape because the guy's like, we're gonna run a train on your girlfriend or whatever, we're gonna fuck your girlfriend like she wanted us to. If that's a rape accusation, then so is whatever you did on your fucking stream when you were like simulating sex with her, aggressive sex. Neither are, by the way, right? Neither of them are. And she probably did want to fuck him. Fuck, I want to kill this. Oh, fuck. Okay, crazy.
Right? So why is all of a sudden that now beneath you? Like, you don't have any problems with him now after he's willing to fight. The point is, you're talking about, you say these things and you don't have consequences. Well, what about you? You said these things. He's trying to give you those consequences that you think are so important, and you won't take him up on it. There is a clear hypocrisy.
That was a different example. The guy was a previous fan. It's a giant misunderstanding. There's a lawsuit involved, so I can't talk about this too much, but that is not what I accuse him of.
Yes,
I do not think he is that word. I never said that about him, and that's a lie. He wants to do it because there's an obsession going on, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Well, it's all tying back into the point I'm making, where the things that you preach against, you yourself embody. I'm not trying to use this as a gotcha moment, but I do think it's important to illustrate here that Sneako is still denying this claim, even though there's tons and tons of video evidence where he does say that Brandon Buckingham was threatening to rape someone. He says it multiple times, and that's what the lawsuit was about, but it doesn't prevent Sneako from fighting Brandon Buckingham if he was open to it for defending the beliefs and stuff, which is the point I was trying to make.
I'm gonna R-word your girlfriend. Literally said that. And he said, I'm gonna R-word your girlfriend, bro.
This dude said he is going to R-word my girlfriend.
Yeah, he has a pretty good claim for for defamation, considering he was calling him a rapist. Literally, but that sounds like malicious intent, okay?
Oh, nothing warrants saying I'm gonna R-word your girlfriend. Saying you're gonna R-word my girlfriend?
He said that?
Yes, word for word. I'm going to R-word your girlfriend.
Okay, talking shit by threatening R-word.
Claiming that someone said they're going to rape someone is insinuating they are a rapist for making the threat. So this is just a point that I think he was way off the mark on, because he did make these accusations.
Yeah, and you should know he's lying. Like, we have to understand, like, he's a disingenuous little fucking cretin.
Against Brandon Buckingham.
Your energy, $50 on a course from vetted millionaires, or watching a gaming streamer for 6 hours every night?
What?
Well, he didn't use the course to get rich. He's getting rich from the course, the same way that the course that you're selling is not like your main way that you made money. You are making money from that course now, as opposed to what the course is teaching. But again, this is getting completely sidetracked.
Yeah, it is true. He didn't get money from a course. It's all bullshit ideology. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
That's just not true. That's not my main source of income. I enjoy doing it, and it's a great way to have a network. And you talk about all the lonely men that are out there. What are you doing to go and help these people? We understand that there's a problem with the loneliness of men. People get in there, they ask me questions about how do I network better.
Yeah, okay. So when we talk about loneliness of men, I don't think that it helps reverse the loneliness of men to treat them, teach them that treating women like objects is good. It's good to have, we'd have a loneliness problem because of like social media and like online behavior. It's very true. Teach people to go out, go get a hobby, go get a job, make friends at your job, find a partner. I get a lot of my physical, I'm not like a huge, like I have friends, but I'm not like super into friends, right? But like I enjoy the company of my wife and I enjoy being alone. Like that's just me personally. Yeah. The teach, like what teaching are you, what is it that you're teaching or advocating for that's like having a positive impact on this? Like networking, like it's all business, and like networking is cool, but one, I don't know what you could possibly teach people from networking, but okay. But additionally, I think that like teaching people how to build meaningful connections is probably also very important. It's probably arguably more important. Yeah, maybe teach people to go into like trade jobs. You don't really necessarily need to network, you know? Like networking is like a very high profile business thing. Like he's selling you this idea that like you could all be like high profile business, whatever bullshit garbage. Teach people to just be better versions of themselves. So that's all you really, it's probably a little bit of a better idea. Yeah. How
do I find people who are like-minded? You give them advice and you can see them transform their life. I'm curious as to what you think is a better alternative, because you stream gaming for 6 hours.
Yeah. Work on your mind, body, and spirit. Go, if you know what you want to do in school, go to school and talk to people. It's very simple. It can be difficult, but it's simple. If you're lonely, try to talk to more people in whatever area you can, whether it's work, school, a hobby, go outside. Don't be afraid to leave the house. We have a lot of problems with that. Do that. Go towards a job that you're either very passionate about and you can make money on it, or if you're not passionate, do something else. Do a trade job. You can make money. Do something in automation if you can, or computers. These are really good places to operate towards. These are better ways to motivate people to be better. Put yourself out there a little bit more. Shoot your shot a little bit more. Don't be afraid when you get rejected, because this is a problem. Like, people get rejected a lot on like Tinder, for instance. A lot of guys do. Part of the game. But the problem isn't that you get rejected. The problem is that you get upset when you get rejected. Okay, I haven't fucked like a whole lot of girls, like in the low 20s, whatever. But like as a 350-pound, well, I was weighed more when I was more active when I was in like polyamorous relationship. I was able to pull girls. Like, yeah, you get rejected 19 out of 20 times. Okay, and then you don't. Then you fuck, and then it's all good. Who cares? Like, just learn to fail and don't get upset by it. That's a big thing that young men need to learn, especially. But everybody should learn this, but the young men, especially when it comes to like the dating game, this is okay to fail. You help develop that confidence. Like, you need confidence to get a woman. And when you get rejected, if you overcome that rejection, you develop confidence, right? So that's, it's just about, it's not hard, or it's not like complicated. It can be hard. Obviously, it's hard, but it's not complicated. You just got to slowly do better. There's better advice. You don't need to sell a fucking $15 course. Go to the gym. Wendler 531, Starting Strength by Mark Ripto. Great resources. Learn how to operate your technique before anything else, because that's going to be the most important part of lifting safely. If you want to, like, I'd like to do weight training. These are things to do. Develop your mind, body, your spirit. Try to find something for all these things. I don't know what to tell you. Like, these are good ideas. Okay.
Is that a better solution to men who are lonely watching you play video games, or giving advice to men who don't know how to find a community of like-minded people, who don't know how to make money online and want to live a lifestyle where, look, I'm in Japan. You're still in the same room that I've seen you in since high school.
Who cares?
I can go places. I choose not to. I'm happy here the same way you're happy traveling in Japan. Like, these are non-arguments that you're making. It's the same argument
I've never seen you outside of your room. And I don't know how many years I've seen.
Well, that's where he works. Listen, like, not for nothing. First of all, that's where he works. Second of all, and this is another thing that you have to recognize, like how Sneako is very terminally online, okay? It's not wrong to travel, but some people like to create the boundary of not sharing too much, okay? My wife and I started like a vlog channel, right? It's in my like recommended whatever, suggested bullshit. If you want to take a look at it, it's called Robin Dan. But like for me, people have been asking me to do stuff like that for a long time, but I like to separate stuff. Like, it's the reason why I don't go into depth about like my working out. I don't have like a workout channel. I want to have some time to myself. I don't really post a lot of pictures on social media. I want to like I'm a little more of a private person. And even with the vlog, like we don't always have like, we're not always doing this with the camera out. My wife does it. It's like her channel that I'm part of, right? Because it's cool. We do a podcast and a vlog, but like, I don't want to facilitate everything. I just do the video editing. The point that I'm making here is that like a lot of people just like to have that boundary of separation on the internet, of not showing everything. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But who cares if somebody hasn't left the fucking room? Like, who gives a shit?
Seen you on YouTube. I've never seen you out of your room. I've seen you with dildos in your room, throwing it at each other and your friends. I've never seen you travel.
Scary.
I've never seen you network with other people. I've never seen you show your audience what's possible if they make
network with other people. Doesn't he for like OTK or something? Like, he's constantly networking. Oh god.
Make money as well. I've seen you play video games since like 2016.
In one of the clips you showed of me, I am outside at Gasparilla with my girlfriend. What are you talking about? We got into a little bit more of a heated argument about this point. I do still take great issue with gurus charging for courses, much like Sneako does with the creativity kit, and it's something he actually pitched a lot during our conversation. So it seems something that he strongly believes in. I don't know if that's because of the...
No, because he knows that you're going to play it to people and he wants people to join. He does it's not helpful. This bullshit is not helpful. Like, gurus are fucking bullshit. They're going to sell you snake oil. He's just trying to get you to sign on to his shit so he can make more money in what is basically a pyramid scheme. It's not fruitful. Okay, you go to the YMCA. Like, that's all it is. It's a young men's club, except there's nothing to offer. There's nothing of value there to offer. Okay, that's it, man. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's all a fucking snake oil. It's a bunch of very like desperate young men who are looking for a solution, and they're looking for somebody to blame their problems on, and it happens to be women and wokeness. That's all it really comes down to. That's it.
Monetary gain he experiences from it, or if he truly believes it is something that's changing lives. But he did pitch it multiple times because I pointed out that I don't like that kind of shit. It feels exploitative to people that are desperate and looking for anything, whether it's a sense of community or a sense of here's how to get successful like me. When really the success is built upon the people that pay for it, not what you're preaching.
Yep.
At least the majority of the time that's the case.
Like, yes, he built his success through making YouTube videos, and then he was able to take that fame and say, like, I can help you get really big. But, like, it doesn't do anything. And that is how a lot of these, like, positions work. Like, yeah, it doesn't have, like, it's not good advice. It's not going to be good advice. There's nothing in-depth about it.
And then he made the false claim about, you know, you don't showcase what's possible because you stay in your room a lot. Which I do stay in my room a lot, but there is so much content on my channel where I'm outside of my room, it's baffling that he'd even try and make that claim with a straight face. And even in the number one thing he showed for me, which is the picture of me and my girlfriend, we were literally outside at a party. So I don't understand why he keeps making that claim that I don't leave my room or I'm only in the house. But it is something that I fought him on, and he did clearly see he was incorrect on. So another thing he was willing to concede.
Wow.
But still maintaining that courses like $50 a month isn't a lot of money, especially for the value he believes people get out of it.
Which is
and
zero.
Maybe I can only speak for everything I've ever seen, but I've never read or met someone who is successful because they bought a online guru's course. I only ever see or hear about the people who've lost so much.
So I remember like looking into the Andrew Tate thing, and basically you pay like a certain amount of money. I think it was $50 also. It might have been 60. And I think there's a Hustlers University 4.0 now, guys, because he has to keep rebranding it because it's not successful. So he has to keep getting you to, this is what it's an expansion, right? We're at 4.0. I'm not kidding. We just did 3.0 like what, less than a year ago, because people keep unsubscribing, and now he's like, this is the next best one. It's new. It's basically like when you buy a textbook for school and it just jumbles around the chapters to exploit you for money, which is what the school system does. By the way, it's a flaw of our school system. That's all it is. And basically it tells you to follow like really basic bullshit. He has some like moderator that just puts out like really basic dumb fucking videos that you could have gotten all this information if you just had a dad. So we need better dads in the household, guys. And then if it doesn't work for you, he says it's your fault because you didn't follow it correctly. Like that's all it is. It's really, to me, no different than like mega churches with preachers that take all your money. I don't know. It's just fucking stupid.
More money than they ever had to spend because they're chasing this fucking hopium that's being peddled their way with these courses and guides. Now again, Sneako's might not be that. I haven't read it. I'm not 100% sure, but the vast majority of these guru courses are completely worthless scams. You're talking about things that are agreeable, and this is what I've said about Andrew Tate. He doesn't always say silly, dumb shit, but he does, and he couples it with good, real things, like you mentioned, porn addiction is a problem. Sure. Like, no one's going to disagree with that. But everything that you're sprinkling in outside of it is totally fucking irrelevant to the rest of it.
And then he sells porn.
You going and flexing on your audience isn't showing them what's possible. It's showing what's possible when they're paying for your lifestyle. The advice you give, you thrive off them staying miserable. Right? The second they get happy, the second they get money,
no,
the second
I definitely don't.
They will not be paying for your course anymore.
If my audience does not get value from my content, they're going to leave.
No, they're not. So here's one of the things that like actually is, it's like gambling, right? So he has this course, and I'm sure that there are some people who end up successful, right? Probably very little value from the course, but they attribute it to the course. And what happens is like it's like when you do like the lottery, or you do gambling. If you're a casino, you want people to win. You just don't want too many people to win, right? You want enough people to win so that people go, oh, you can win. So they'll try to play the game. That's all it is. The difference is that we know gambling is all full of shit, right? That's all it is. It's just like that. It's the exact same thing.
The reality is that streamers and content creators like you, the audience always grows up. They watch the gaming content, and they grow up. They're not learning anything, and so they go to another content creator. They go to somebody else who's popular or trendy. You need to add value to the audience, or else they are going to grow out of it.
And the value from the value of most things is entertainment. What you used to do was humor interlaced with your stuff. Now it's just preaching to the choir of people that already subscribe to your hive mind. You're still doing the same thing.
That's what you see on Twitter, because that's the only mainstream platform that I'm still allowed to be on. If you watch my stream,
I have watched your
streams. In a couple weeks, when I watch my stream for 4 hours, it's not preaching. A lot of it's humor. My motto is seek truth through funny.
Which you've abandoned.
What's going on in the world.
Yeah, you're not funny though. So.
It seems you have completely abandoned.
He can't take jokes back, so he's not funny. You're not funny if you can't take a joke back. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
I have watched your streams. I have. A lot of it devolves into just talking again about the same things you always mention. Soy boys, bots, woke mind virus, and then dancing around. And then always trying to defend and find the other side of something controversial. It's the same formula over and over again because that's how you found to keep your audience hooked. It's no different than people that...
I go on Omegle and I'm joking around for an hour or 2 hours. I bring on my viewers and we joke to each other. I bring on people, real life people, they sit next to me and we joke around. I have different podcasts. I have different guests.
The jokes
I did a podcast with Ryan Dawson, uncovering Epstein and uncovering the truth about 9/11, which I really recommend that you go see, to an alternative.
I have listen, not for nothing, but once he said uncovering the truth about 9/11, what's the truth about, like, was it a fucking inside job? Come on, bro. We're still on this conspiracy shit. Listen, conspiracies can be fun, but holy fuck, bro. Jesus Christ. This is the same guy that thinks that Jews run the fucking world. Holy fuck.
Platform that's labeled as an alt-right conspiracy website and still maintain the same audience. You can't do that by repeating the same things every day. You have to add some value.
But you can. That's the number one grift right now. As long as you are contributing to an echo chamber, the people will not leave you. You form a reliance where they're constantly suckling your tit for...
True, and if you start saying things that don't align with them, they'd leave you. That's the problem. Like, people who are completely enthralled by audience capture, right? Then they're just like, oh, goodbye, they'll leave you. That's why, like, I'm pretty happy with my audience now. Like, I'm rebuilding it. Like, I don't have audience capture. People are, like, programmed that they can disagree with me, and I have, like, crybaby shit fit meltdowns. And I will, like, I disagree with people all the time. People are like, I don't like that, but they don't leave. But this happens in a lot of other places. If you say one thing that's, like, that disaligns from, like, what they're supposed to say, you get fucking dumpstered. That's what happens. That's just what happens. Sorry.
He's
validation. He's caught in
point
that.
of view is the right one. And the more that you claim the victim, the more that solidifies and cements them that belief is the correct one because people are attacking
That's absolutely not true at all. I've been talking about the woke mind virus for a long time, and now my audience wants to get into know the truth, so I've been interviewing different people. I did a whole podcast uncovering Epstein and who's actually on the client list because that's one big conspiracy theory that people want to know more about. I did an entire podcast uncovering 9/11 and the Iraq War and what happened and why war is created
what?
By deception.
Yeah, we already know this. You're not uncovering anything. We already know that, like, the war in Iraq was, like, bullshit. And, like, they used 9/11 to justify, like, an unjust war. Like, you're not uncovering anything. Like, this is something that's been known for, like, 20 fucking years. Since 9/11, okay? I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm getting into more things because if you get repetitive, they're going to leave.
Admittedly, I do feel bad doing one thing that I
make changes just for my audience to leave.
Like you mentioned, box them into categories. Because it is very possible, outside of all the content I've watched from him, that he does other things. Now, I have seen a lot of him. I've watched quite a few streams now, out of curiosity, since his big meltdown with the whole dancing with the gun thing about our beef. So I went on there and I did watch some of his streams from that point forward, but they always went the same way. But I do think it was unfair of me to try and box it in and say he's always doing the same thing when it is entirely possible that it's just my exposure to it and what I've seen so far. So I do completely concede that it is possible he does more and talk about more than just what I see on Twitter and the streams that I've seen. But it is worth mentioning later into this discussion, he boxes me in and says all I do is sit in my room playing video games on stream for 7 hours a day. So he is still guilty of the same thing he's accusing others of, which is a point I like to make. But he doesn't fully realize when I say it to him, but hopefully, after our conversation, he does take a step back and recognize, like, okay, I am guilty of a lot of the things I'm accusing others of. But anyway, that was a point that was kind of branching off from the core topic at this moment of the discussion, which was courses. I have no respect for people that are selling courses on, like, here's how you make money. The number one way to make money, guaranteed success. You're going to, make it with this one. Give me this amount of money.
Go be an HVAC tech, guys. There you go. Buy the course from school.
Every month for my book. I always find that to be exploitative, shitty, scummy, and completely useless. Those kind of creators, those kind of people, they rely on desperation.
Yeah.
100%. So let's think about this logically. Why would someone who's selling courses on happiness and how not to be lonely, how to get laid, or how to make money, why would they actually want you to succeed? Because then they lose you as a customer. It is far more in their interest to keep you miserable to keep buying the product. And it is something a lot of them are guilty of doing. Now, I haven't seen Sneako's Creativity Kit, so I can't say for sure if he is also guilty of it as well.
He is.
Maybe he does try and offer legitimate advice and actually help people. It is possible, but that's not the case.
Well, even if he tries to offer it, it's still a scam. He may not even realize that it's one, but it still is. That's really what it boils down to.
For the vast majority of them, which is why I always call it out as this is scummy, or at the very least, unnecessary. We live in a time where you have access to all the information you could ever want. You just need to search it up. You don't need to be.
Yeah, yes and no. The kind of like the only problem with that is like we do live in like an information age, but sometimes the information is like incorrect information. It's like not good information, and you have to be a little bit careful about subscribing. It's like just trusting anything. It can be a little bit scary. That's how you find like COVID denier statistics. Okay. Even though they're not actually like correct statistics, we're at a point where like you have to be careful with some of the information you look at. We do have information at our fingertips, absolutely. We got to be a little bit careful. You have to be careful going into these things with a bias. Try not to be looking for an answer. So.
Be paying people that you view as successful to learn their secrets when those secrets they're revealing aren't what they used to get wealthy in the first place. It's selling you hope. When you are buying their product, you are filling their pockets. That is the product. The book. Not what's in it, it's the book. They're making their money off your purchase of the book. They're not making their money off of the advice they've given you. At least not the majority of the time. And that's what I was trying to talk about here.
What are your beliefs? What are they? I don't know them. Can you tell me what you believe in?
Yeah, I feel like I've made my beliefs very clear. I am very firmly on the side of there are certain things, and it's going to be different for everyone, that make people happy. And main thing I want is for people to be happy. I don't like that men are alone, which is why a lot of the advice I give is telling them to get out of their comfort zone and start with something like the gym. The gym is a very social environment. It's an environment where everyone's working towards similar goals. You immediately surround yourself with like-minded people, and maybe you make a connection at the gym. Maybe you can find a friend there. But even if you don't, you are out of your comfort zone in an environment where people are working for a similar goal. And that already...
Yeah, that's great advice. And this is something I would like to say, because especially in my time where like I lifted more seriously, the bigger guys that are like really like fit and muscular, they're usually the nicest people who have no problem helping you out. But one of the things you want to get over is there's some people who may not be the nicest people. They might look at you, judge you, criticize you, might laugh at you. And you have to work through that. And you also might think that there are people at the gym who are doing that, especially if you're somebody with something that like you're self-conscious about something. Maybe you're overweight, maybe you're short, maybe you're too skinny, you're underweight, maybe you're really skinny. And you kind of have to like build some mental toughness and get into the gym. The best way to do that, let's say you're somebody who wants to go to the gym and work out, just go to the gym and just walk. Go to the gym and walk, and maybe read like a lifting book while you're at the gym. Read that Wendler 531. Read that Starting Strength by Mark Ripto. Watch those YouTube videos on how to properly squat. Try not to be too self-conscious. Don't ego lift and start too high. Start with the bar if you need to. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Just build upwards while you build technique. These are great things to do. But sometimes, especially like just getting into the gym, walking in there and being in there for 20 minutes a day for like 3 weeks will get you more comfortable with the atmosphere to be able to move forward and like work out more. So
changes your mindset as a person. You've given yourself a goal, you are acting on it, and now you're surrounded by people that are also in a similar boat. I think most importantly is I want people to be happy, and a lot of times they can't find that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with escapism, like watching someone play a game or even playing games yourself. Watching a sport, playing a sport yourself is also great. I play pickup basketball every Thursday. Whoa. Getting out, talking, outside of a comfort zone, instead of sitting online making 20,000 tweets on the Sneako Twitter, I think is not productive. Replying to Sneako's Twitter, replying to my Twitter, none of it I think is productive. I've had Twitter since 2012. I've made 2,600 tweets, and half of those are just shit posts or a retweet. I think all of that, locking yourself inside as a recluse, living in this completely toxic landscape like Twitter is the most detrimental thing for a person, and that extends to TikTok as well. I think TikTok has absolutely ruined people's brains in terms of what they can even stomach as an attention span.
True.
Having to have like Subway Surfer underneath a video of someone talking because you can't focus long enough, I think it's all a problem. So the things I talk about are usually geared towards either entertaining people for 8 minutes a day or whatever, or during a stream if they're already home from work and just need to unwind. I think all of that is fine. But I do always try and give some level of advice. My background, I don't know if you know, I'm a human science graduate with a concentration in exercise physiology.
That's cool.
I believe very firmly in the mind-body connection in terms of strength building and muscle building. It's going to change your whole brain chemistry, and it will help improve the way you're looking at the world. So that's one of the big things I talk about, is even if you're 100% comfortable with your body, there is no reason not to at least try to make these kind of differences and change your perspective on things. Like, it doesn't even have to be a body issue. It helps your mind overall. I am always against people paying for advice from so-called gurus and professionals because you don't need it. The beauty of the internet is it is an unlimited repository of all of the human knowledge, just this compendium of every piece of information for every subject you could want. And you can access it for free. Under no circumstances do I ever advocate for someone paying up to $50 a month for advice they can freely find right now, even if it doesn't come with a built-in...
Gamers always have the argument, but then they never talk about how college is a waste of time and that people go into 50 to 100.
College isn't a waste of time. This is the problem. Anti-woke. He's a fucking... College is not a waste of time. There are significant issues with colleges. Colleges are too expensive, not just in the cost of the actual college, but also the books. I was talking about that before. They'll make a new book every year that's the same book with like jumbled chapters. TI-83 calculators are still like $150, despite the fact that the technology can be put on a fucking iPhone as an app. It should cost $5. There are significant problems. They'll elongate the amount of time you need to be in school for no fucking reason. They'll clog the curriculum with dumb bullshit, and it is a problem. But it doesn't mean it's worthless. You can get knowledge from there, and that will improve your life, and you could also get a job from going to college. Now, I would generally recommend against just going to college if you don't know what you want to do outside of a 2-year liberal arts degree, right? If you go to college for 2 years because you don't really know what you want to do and you get like some of the bullshit out of the way, that's fine. But if you don't know what you want to do at that point, nothing wrong with like entering the workforce in more serious capacity. There's nothing wrong with going towards computers. If you can, it's a great idea because these are things that are hard to automate. Automation is very real. It is displacing jobs and it's driving down wages, okay? You know, now I went to the movie theater today. I didn't even go in to watch a movie, but I went to like an outlet center and their bathrooms are better in there. So there's no more person taking tickets at that particular movie theater. It's all automated kiosks. Jobs are disappearing, especially low-skill labor jobs. The gap between high-paid jobs and low-paid jobs are increasing. Those high-paying jobs are going to be those the trade jobs. Those trade jobs are hard to automate because they're more intricate. It's difficult. No two plumbing jobs are really going to be the same. Automation automates like more menial labor, right? And the jobs that'll be left is like when it's cheaper to hire somebody for the job than to automate them away, right? These are real things. The way that you could get those costs down, it's mostly in the administrative costs. Basically, costs of like administrators that barely increase the experience for the student or the teacher, mostly in charge of just trying to get people to go to the school, not necessarily actually providing particular value. So here's what you do. Government says, hey, charge what you want, but if you have the administrative costs that are too high, we're not going to give you a subsidy. All of a sudden, school will be cheaper, right? I'm applying solutions. Sneako is school's a waste. It's not a waste. If you're really passionate about being a teacher, that might be, depending on the area, an oversaturated field. But if you're passionate about it and you're going to put 110% into it, do that thing. If you have a passion, not everybody has a passion. This is one of the things that we poison our children's mind with. I was told that you have to know. Oh, you have to have a passion. I remember I was into music at one time because who isn't? And like, what's your passion? What do you want to go to school for? I'm like, maybe I want to do music. Like, I know never. I hate that they made you have to try to figure out a passion at like 17 and 16, 18 years old. You know, that's one of the greatest fucking mysteries of life. Not everybody's going to have a passion. Or your passion may not be able to monetize you, but you know what? Let's say you love fucking Pokemon cards, and you want to fund that passion. Go be a mechanic. Go be an HVAC tech. Go be a plumber. Go be a carpenter. Go do something that'll be able to give you the money to afford to invest in things you actually like, even if you can't monetize those things. Right? This is real advice. School's not a waste. Okay, but you need to be careful. And another thing we need to tack on is the reality is that there are people nowadays who are getting through school, and I know a few of them. They're doing really well. They're getting bachelor's degrees. They're getting master's degrees. They're profoundly intelligent, and they settle for jobs that are entry level, and they just don't push forward. They'll get a master's in fucking social work, and then they'll go be a waitress because they're too afraid to take the next step. You need to also make sure you don't do that. We have a lot of problems. We have the problems with underachievers. This is something that I've really pushed. I have a huge problem with underachievers. My biggest problem with underachievers is that you can do better than the job you're in, and there are some people who you're taking a job from because that's the best they can do. And it's not through any fault of their own. There could have been a series of systemic issues. They might have grown up poor. They might have been like an immigrant to this country, or their parents might have been immigrants. And they didn't really get access to a lot of opportunity. And the best they can do is the particular job that you're taking because you're too fucking lazy and too much of an underachiever. People will be like, well, who cares? No, that's a big deal. I was one of those people. It's not about you being better than them. There's a series of different things that happen in life that make us who we are. And sometimes there are people who don't get to do jobs that they should be able to do because you're too fucking lazy to use that bachelor's or master's degree that you got because you're an underachiever. That's shitty. Okay? Sneako doesn't talk about real stuff. He just says, school bad? And shits himself. It's not bad, but you need to move with a purpose in life. That's something that you should do. Make as a foundation. Move with the purpose in life. That is profoundly important.
$100,000 in debt from people who aren't vetted millionaires. If you could pay $50 and talk to a vetted millionaire who has made money online in a way that they don't teach in school, $50 is a steal.
What, hate farming like videos? Like you're just an actor, a shitty one. Who just like follows trends of being like morally dysfunctional and pretending to be fucking religious. You can't, like, they can't get famous like you. That's like if I sold you guys a course on how to get, like, because I make decent money. Here guys, here's my book. There's nothing I could tell you in the book. I got fucking lucky, and people happen to like to listen to me. Like, it's a 1 in a fucking million shot. Like, there's no book. Like, honestly, like if I could, I would go back in time. Well, I wouldn't change my life trajectory only because it's how I met my wife, and I love my wife. But if I could go back and give myself advice, I would be like, hey, go, honestly, probably computers. I'd say go do a computer science degree when you age up. Or I do welding, because that sounds like it could be fun too, and it makes good money, right? And my advice wouldn't be try to do TikTok. You know what you could do? If you do decide to become a welder or something, maybe make TikToks based on your profession. Hey guys, here's what I did today. I made this. That's a cool idea, because you know what? It's not a sure shot. You're not going, like, don't sell people the pipe dream of like, you could be a social media person. It's like a fucking 1 in a trillion. Okay, and you want to know what? Nowadays, people don't want fucking Sneakos. He's on his way out. Like he's encapsulated a bunch of like fucking depressed kids that don't have dads, and I get that. But people want genuinity now. See, Sneako's is not like this is the society's immune system going after Sneako, and like people like this that are terminally online that don't provide any real value, and they don't really have anything of particular interest to say. They're not real people. They're just like a fucking they're performance piece. And we are, as a society, like working back. Like a lot of social media stuff online now is like people want to hear real people talk about real shit. It's kind of where we're going, right? So like, you don't sell people like this idea of being rich and famous, because it's very difficult to do. So you should definitely, at the very least, if you want to do these things, have a backup, right? Before I was doing this, I had a job. I was working. I worked for 11 years as like part of which was being a manager of a cleaning crew for a bus company, and I was going back to school for computer science like while working full time. And then COVID hit, and I got it was difficult to go to school, but then I also got lucky and I became famous. So I'm like, fuck it, let me just work on this, and it's been going great. I got lucky. That was not the way I thought my life was gonna go. Okay, I got incredibly lucky, right? I was lucky that COVID happened, which was a tragedy. I wish it never did, because my uncle passed away. God fucking rest his soul, you know? Sad stuff, man, because we couldn't even have a funeral for him. That's how fucked it was. Sorry. Let me not go into this tangent. I'll get upset. Sorry. Point is, he's selling you fucking snake oil.
You get really upset about this because you're paying somebody directly and you know who you're spending the money on. You don't get upset about college because you don't know the principal, you don't know the headmaster, you don't know the donors. They're nameless people behind a university. So the point of the network...
Bro, you realize you have teachers that have like master's degrees and stuff that teach you, right? Like what are you talking about? It's a little bit different. You have to know this.
It's collection of information concentrated in one place, and also the network of people that you can find. Right here, I'm in Japan traveling with somebody that I met from the Creativity Kit. That's something that is invaluable and that you will only find by paying $50, which is not a huge price.
That is a big price, but also, do you see what just happened there?
$50 is a huge price. That's the same price as your merch that you're using to advertise on this drama. Would you rather your audience pay $50 for a t-shirt from a gamer, or they meet somebody that they can go start?
Yes, you're better off paying $50 for a t-shirt from like Charlie than doing this. Okay? I'm just letting you know that. You are better off because he's selling you snake oil. Okay? He's selling you snake oil. You are better off spending money on a fucking t-shirt. Just letting you know.
Business with.
That the merch isn't $50 for
like, and not for nothing. It's one per like. Let's say there's like 1,000 people sign up for his course. One of them got to hang out with him, so your chances are 1 in 1,000. And I guarantee you that the person signed up for the course is probably some rich like fucking dumb kid that like has like a bunch of disposable income. Is like, this is cool. Let me hang out with fucking Sneako.
T-shirt. But regardless, what I want you to recognize is what happened there. I was talking. Okay. It's still not, but with what just happened there is I was talking about something and you went into PR speak and salesman mode to talk about your course, and you attributed something to me that I actually talk against. I actually have spoken many times about why college just isn't right for everybody. It's not. It simply isn't. I think college provides an invaluable social experience where for the first time in your life you're on your own, so you learn how to fend for yourself, you learn how to interact with roommates, strangers, so you get social skills, but college is not going to be a great fit for everyone, especially when it comes to certain academia positions, especially like in some art fields. I actually talk a lot about that, but you keep lumping me in with this perception of a gamer and these beliefs that you don't know anything about me on, and yet you still put me in there.
Then you should probably make it more clear.
I do.
I've been personally watching your videos for years, and I had no idea about any of this. So, I've seen you gaming.
I just don't think that he's been watching his game for I'm sure everybody knows who Charlie is. Like he's a large social media presence. Right, like I've watched multiple of his videos, but you're not going to get like an in-depth view. He's probably referring to his streams, right? Like there's a difference between streaming and video content creation. So when Charlie's making videos, I doubt that most of this is really in those videos. It's probably more, because they're like about a topic, you know, depending on his topic, right? But to just say like, oh, well, you don't talk about these things. I've never seen Sneako talk about these things either. I've seen Sneako complain without providing solution, but I've never heard him talk about it. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but every single time he does talk about it, he's like, you say, oh, college is just bad. College bad. Sign up for my course. He's not actually pitching anything real. He's not telling you what's bad about college. I gave you an in-depth reason why college is a very frustrating experience and the specific way you should go through life for free. Okay, because I'm not sitting here trying to sell you fucking snake oil. There's nothing magical that I know that isn't really already known. It just could be hard to gather that information because it takes a long time it could take a long time to figure these things out. And these are things I wish I knew when I was young, right? Like I grew up in a generation where like, especially my generation, like my parent, like, you know, my mom pushed me into going to school. That was the big thing. We're starting to see that that's not what should be happening. You're seeing people speak out against it. So I had to learn through negative experience, and now it's time for you guys to be able to weaponize or use my experience that I could teach you, like, oh, this is a problem. Like, I wish that they didn't just tell me that I could have been whatever I wanted, like a magical fairy unicorn, you know, right? So
I've seen you react to drama content. I didn't
Whoa,
know that
you
was
too.
the method to make people happy.
That's
which
all
I think
you do.
Is a narrow way of answering that question about what
That's
you
all he
believe in and
does.
what your belief system is.
I was still
but that's
going.
fine. But I'm glad that you said that. And I think that you should reiterate that more in your video to add more value.
Hey, here's my criticism.
So you said you've watched for a long time. These aren't secrets. I made a video 6 years ago. I just double checked. I uploaded a video 6 years ago called "You're Getting Fucked by College Textbooks." The entire video is about how college textbooks in particular are a massive scam and a very predatory system that universities are using. I do talk about these things. You are just not seeing them and then still putting words in my mouth. My beliefs, I think, are very clear to the people that watch. They're not a secret. They're not hidden. I make them very obvious. It was after this brief discussion here that the entire landscape of our conversation changed, and it became very clear Sneako never knew anything about me to begin with. He keeps calling me a gamer, using the hard G on me, gamer.
Nice.
And I think that might be because that's the only content he ever watched, but I really don't think I've ever made a secret what my beliefs are. I talk about them on stream, I talk about them in videos, I've never been fearful of it. And yet Sneako either pretends he never saw them, or maybe he just legitimately never saw them. But after explaining to him, he really seemed to change his whole tone about me as a person. I'm not a psychiatrist here or an expert in the field, but if I had to wager a guess, I think Sneako put an image of me in his head and attributed a whole ton of characteristics to that scarecrow that he put in there that just isn't actually me in reality. And that's who he attacks so vehemently. Whereas I do know a lot about Sneako, because there is a big difference between us in terms of our belief. It's all the fuck he talks about. It's the only thing that ever leaves his mouth is always preaching about something. We're trying to make a big statement about their beliefs or their politics, whereas that's not me. The main thing I focus on is just entertainment. My videos are made purely for fun. It's just because I thought it'd be entertaining, it's a silly topic, it's something fun, and that's it. There's never really anything too much deeper. Unless it's a topic I'm covering that I'm passionate about, or I have something more I want to add on to about my own personal beliefs, then I do. Sure. I'm never afraid to. But it's not all I talk about, whereas for Sneako and a lot of people in his circle, their main content is talking about what they believe, whereas my main thing is just making entertaining shit. So maybe that's a core misunderstanding here, because he clearly didn't really know much about me, whereas I do know a lot about him since he is so open with everything. He wears his fucking heart on his sleeve, and I just disagree with a lot of it. But a big difference is I don't hate people that I disagree with on things. In fact, there is nobody in the world, not even my best friends, that I agree with on every issue, every time, and see eye to eye on everything. I don't like that anyway. I wouldn't want to have someone I agree with on everything. I think it's important to have different perspectives and different opinions. It's how you grow and it's how you learn as well. So I don't get mad when people disagree with me or have different things that I don't agree with. That doesn't piss me off. But for Sneako, it clearly has, and he really didn't even know anything about me to begin with here until after our conversation. Now, I know I'm cutting up our conversation quite a bit here, but I'm just trying to focus on like the big chunk topics that we tackled. One of them that we did touch on quite a bit and got pretty passionate about is gaming, and like Sneako firmly believes that people that are gaming or watching sports are wasting their time. Completely valueless. Entertainment like that has no value whatsoever. Just and I kept trying to point out that
just pay the $50 and read through his Discord all day. That's better than gaming, guys. Read through his fucking Discord. Just so you know, that entertainment value that you're getting out of media, don't get that. There is such thing as overindulgence, for sure. I would know because I'm fat. But nothing wrong with gaming. Just make sure you balance your life out a little bit more too. So
there's nothing wrong with entertainment, like watching sports, watching movies, watching streams, playing games. All of that's fine in moderation. But Sneako only views it through one lens, which is excess.
He's not
obsession, addiction, where all they do is watch sports, play games, do this and that. And then, of course, it is very detrimental and it is bad for overall health. I'm not going to bother showing clips from that because that one just really went in circles. I think there's just a fundamental disagreement there where Sneako believes anything that's entertainment driven is just not worth it, and time could always be spent better doing anything else.
But he doesn't believe that, though. That's the thing. He preaches that as a belief, but that's all his content is. He hate farms for fucking money and attention. Like, he's all entertainment. All he does is yell and scream. Like, he's 100% entertainment, but he tries to pretend and like label it, like magically label it as like if it's not that, if those aren't his intentions, if that's not actually what's happening. I'm getting fucking dumpstered. If that's not actually what's happening. He's full of shit, and if he doesn't realize, like, is either one of two things: either he's either he's grifting, he's intentionally lying to you, or he really has gaslit himself into believing that like he's providing this profound fucking value, and either way, it's pathetic. It's sad.
else. But then he puts his content on a pedestal that's an exception to his rule where, no, this content that I make is the one that's valuable. Everything else is worthless. This is the value. This, 4 hours, 5 hours of Rumble streaming and, whatever's going on over there, that's a good use of time. And all the other streams like gaming and all that's terrible. So it's that got really muddy and messy. And
but he's educational, really guys.
We met somewhere.
And school's a complete waste. That's why I don't need to go to school. That's why he doesn't need any accreditations to be educational.
Had a perspective that made sense to each other because his stream is just as much guilty of being a waste of time by his definition as my stream playing a game. It's still a form of entertainment and escapism, no matter how you spin it. I don't see how your message is somehow bolstered by spamming slurs, for example, like during that stream with the gun. I couldn't listen to you because you kept saying slurs. How is that necessarily helping make people happy or positive in any way, shape, or form? What does that do to contribute to your overall goal? Because it's not humor either, so it's not seeking truth through funny. It's literally just spamming slurs.
We need humor. I'm going to say slurs. By the way, if I called him like a racial slur, he would cry about it and say like, that's not right. But he'll go around and like he'll say like, that's the problem. I mean, I wouldn't say those because like those are obviously bad boy words. Okay, pro gamer words are not allowed here. But the point is like he would play the victim. Like he sits there and says like the F slur, all this other fucking crazy shit, all he wants. But then the second that you go after him, he would fucking cry about it. And it's true.
First, because you were mad at me.
It is the reason that it's funny is because I'm on a platform that has free speech, and you're not bound by wokeness where you can't say certain words and you're labeled racist or homophobic or transphobic.
But yeah, if you're saying racist, homophobic, if I start saying the N word with the hard R, you'd probably assume I'm racist. Because I'm comfortable saying an actual slur. Like, not for nothing, but like this free speech argument's annoying. Because obviously I believe in free speech. But like, whether a platform restricts you from using things like the F slur or not, why would you even say them? Like, you should try to be respectful of other people that potentially want to latch onto your ideology. Unless your ideology centralizes around hating those people. And you actively want to remove them from your community. And considering all the anti-LGBTQ shit that he talks about, I was like, ruining the world. He's one of those people, obviously.
Where you can say things even if you don't mean them because we're not trapped with words.
Say things you don't mean them? You're fucking... What kind of a loser says shit that they don't mean? I don't understand. Does he realize how fucking like hard he's dumpstering himself?
Why say something you don't mean, though? What does that do? Wouldn't that go against your ideology where you're, like, faking it?
That's not a word. A word doesn't encompass a whole belief system. A word can be funny. The word faggot is funny.
It's not. I don't know what to tell you. Listen, if you say it, whatever, like, privately, that's fine, but you shouldn't be saying that shit publicly. You really shouldn't be saying it at all. Like, it just excludes gay people. Like, why? And if you can use it to be funny, that's fine. Like, let's say your argument's like, well, Papa God, I say it to be funny. Maybe you're gay friends. Like, listen, I know my wife's gay friends because I don't have gay friends. Ew, no. They say the word sometimes and they use it to be funny. I get that. Okay, whatever. But like, when you're talking on the internet to a plethora of people, it's different. That's one of the things you have to learn about when you go into social media is that people are very different. So some words that you'll use will be communicated differently to different people, and you can never understand the intentions. When I used to make edgier jokes, which I still make, there are people who were like racist who latched onto them, and it was especially because it was in short form content on TikTok. And you think that everybody means well, and I don't think that Sneako even believes that like the people interpret it in the positive way, but let's say he did. So many people are going to interpret it the most negative way. You shouldn't be saying these words. It's just a matter of respect.
That was the funniest thing you said this whole debate.
How is that?
You're laughing now. See?
Well, because it's just an outrageous claim. It's like talking to a child.
Well, no, like my point.
So
it's outrageous. It's funny.
Your defense of it.
The first time we laughed this whole time. This whole thing.
The defense of it is the joke, right? So
because of one little word.
Yes, because it's such a silly defense of it. It's like a child who hears fuck for the first time and he's like, "Woo, daddy said fuck." Like things started to go a little goofy mode here, a little wacko style.
That made me laugh.
The slurs is something I've mentioned. I couldn't watch him on stream because he just kept saying the F slur. And my point here was, why? It doesn't really accomplish anything for his goals or anything like that. He's just spamming slurs, which makes it sound like he's just mad at me and trying to choose the worst words he can think of. Now, looking back on it, I do regret not pushing a bit more on this point because there was a lot I wanted to say on it, but I just got so thrown off and blown away by his explanation of all of it that I totally forgot to expand. Because he really only says the F slur, the homophobic slur. And he says it doesn't encompass a whole belief system. Okay, well then why is it only that slur? I don't think I've ever heard him start spamming the N-word, hard R, or anything like that. And he's very open about how much he appreciates the Islamic faith. I've never heard him use any slurs against Muslims or anything like that. So if you feel so strongly that words don't necessarily indicate your actual beliefs, then why aren't you using more slurs? Why don't...
Yeah, like I just said before, he doesn't like gay people. That's what it boils down to. He thinks that gay people are ruining the world because he's a sensitive bitch that thinks that the entire world is crumbling because of gay people, right? Because gay people, guys, that's ruining our lives. Not the fucking not the fathers that are just not in the homes. Let's be real. Right, it's the fucking gay people. It's not the dads who aren't willing to be there for their kids. It's the gay people. And I'm not saying that mothers are the perfect parents, but disproportionately, there are single mothers to single fathers. We have an absence of fathers in the household, and not even in the household. Let me be very clear. I don't care if you stay together or not. You can be a good father without being a good husband. They just don't want to be there for their kids. It's just a fact. That's ruining our society more than a fucking gay guy that likes glitter on his fucking nails. I don't care about that. We're so obsessed with, oh, this is what it means to be a real man or a real woman. Well, you know what? Then if you were born a woman, you can't be a man. Ugh. But then you don't. Then you just shit and cum all over trans people, but you don't care what it means to be a real man when it comes to a man being in the fucking household. And you might say, well, conservatives do call that out. Not fucking nearly as much as gay people. That's a huge fucking problem. It's a huge issue. So, again, let's focus. Let's stop crying about trans people wanting to be valid. Right? Don't complain about trans men not being real men until you act like a real fucking man. Okay? And disrespectful pieces of shit who criticize and make fun of other people's wives, who sex traffic women, who get women drunk to have sex with them, who tell women it's their fault when they're raped and they should have picked a better man. Those aren't men. Focus on that first before all this fucking nonsensical bullshit.
You drop more racist slurs during your stream. Why is the only one you use the F slur? If this is really how you feel about those words, then why aren't you using all of the other slurs?
God,
if they don't mean anything, and you feel so comfortable with Rumble allowing you to use the F slur so loosey-goosey, why is it only that one? Why not every slur? I'm just curious if there's like a tier list of slurs for you. I would have liked to ask more on that, but I guess I'll do it now in post. Which it seems like you can recognize.
Do you believe that Andrew and Tristan Tate are innocent?
No. That I don't know. They could be, and I've said that from the start.
No. Here's the point that we're at. Here's the point that we're at. I want to be very clear, okay? I have to link it inside. I'll try to remember to link it in the description. We're at a point now, though, where we have videos, evidence of Andrew Tate explicitly talking about the way that he used to treat his webcam workers. It's already known that he engaged in lover boy method, promising girls that he'd marry them, come from other countries, and go do sex, and then he gets them to do sex work. We already know he talks about how he treats women differently than other sex work or other cam workers. He treats them like prostitutes. And I know a lot of you young, dumb, fucking morons go, well, they used to be a privilege, and never. Okay, have you ever, like, I've used to live around prostitutes. These women are all fucking drugged up, and they're not happy. They get drugged up so they can keep turning tricks. They get disrespected. They get beaten. They get fucking abused. I don't know if they get raped as well. Okay, you're an idiot. Okay, this is what he talks about. He even the out of context, like intentionally cut up fucking voice logs that were coming out, or not voice logs, the logs that are coming out from those women, and where everybody's like, see, look. The two girls even say, like, the only reason we think we might be able to leave is because the Tate brothers are convinced we're in love with him. That's a fucking red flag. That means that he will only let girls leave once he's successfully fucking manipulated them. He said, like, most of the women, or 50% of the women who did webcam for him, never used to do it. They've never done sex work. These are unprecedented fucking red flags. The guy has admitted to being an abusive piece of shit. What do you want me to tell you? So your best thing to say is, like, from what he said out of his mouth, he's probably guilty, but we can see where the trial finishes. That's the middle ground point. With all evidence that's out, we're no longer, he could be innocent, probably not. We'll see how the trial goes, but based on what he has said, he's probably a fucking sex trafficker. So I don't like this. This is the fence sitting argument we were talking about before, where, like, fence sitters will, like, maybe they won't look into everything. And we haven't finished. Charlie might say something that I might have paused too early, so let me just be clear. But, like, I just want to be clear, that is the most middle ground perspective you could have with all the information, is that he probably did it, but we'll wait and see how the trial goes.
You don't have a belief on that?
Well, because I don't have the evidence. They've been charged twice with the human trafficking, but none of the evidence is public.
You didn't look at all the victims and their allegations and how everything was exposed on WhatsApp, how they plan to make a Netflix movie out of this. All of that was online. I think.
But they didn't plan to make a Netflix movie. It sounded like they were joking about it. But again, I mean, like, listen, the most trustworthy person I know is Andrew Tate. So I'm just going to listen to what he was saying. And he's extracting those girls.
See, if you cover current events, this is something you jump onto the pizza box, but you don't take the time to go and look at all the evidence that was debunked.
That's not true, though. Because
like, why do you spend the narrative laughing at somebody falsely in prison, but you can't go and just look at a couple screenshots and see that as garbage? You're laughing at...
It was already come out that the screenshots were like completely like cut up to try to push a fucking narrative. And again, even in those screenshots cut up, they still fucking... the person who cut them up still fucked up because they added the part where the girls were like, yeah, I think we can only leave because Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate think that we're in love with them, so they'll let us leave because they think we'll come back. Like, the people who fucked up, like, that's all it was. Everything that they were talking about when it was like, oh, we're making a Netflix movie, it sounded like they were like making a fucking like a joke out of their fucking their dark humor, out of their fucking abuse. I don't know what to tell you. You sit here, oh, truth through funny, but you can't identify a joke. Bro, you're a fucking victim that thinks that the Matrix is out to get everybody. Like, of course you would justify like fucking sex trafficking and shit like that. Of course, because you don't give a fuck about women. You're a fucking loser.
The pizza box putting 2 people in jail because of what you saw on Twitter. When I say the word faggot or I say a slur, it's just a funny word to say.
So say
There's
the
no
N-word.
consequences for that. Nobody goes to jail falsely.
I have looked at the evidence from both sides. I always do. I don't just go to these tribes and just assume everything on my side is right and everything on that side is wrong. I take information from all angles in order to find where I personally sit on this perspective, on this situation. So, for the Tate brothers, being charged twice with human trafficking, while there is some shady shit from the victims, there is still real merit to some of the things that people were talking about, such as something you talked about as well, the taking of the passports from some of the women and getting there under the guise that they would be able to date them. Those are very odd, very peculiar things. So it's not like it's just, oh, all of that's wrong and we have to disregard all of it because this is here. There is, on both sides here, evidence that makes it a very complicated case, which is why it's gone on for so long, right? It's not one where I know the answer. They could be innocent, they could be guilty. I do think it's weird they've now been charged twice. There is some very odd things there because that's not exactly a light thing to come after someone for. And there is things that you have talked about.
Wrong that people can go to jail for 4 months without any evidence of charges?
And even outside.
Okay, so I just want to be very clear about, like, okay, so in America, again, I've talked about this before, really quick. America, you go to jail until they bring you to court. Romania, you have to re-up every 30 days. That's the only difference. So the reason that they're there is they're still gathering information. Now, maybe they should, I don't know how the Romanian system works exactly, so maybe they don't leverage formal charges yet until they have more. I don't really know exactly how it works, but that's pretty much it. It's not like this profound conspiracy that's going on here.
Outside of the Tates, I have said that in this country, where you can go to jail on suspicion of things without ever being charged. It's a problem. Yes, it is a problem.
Okay. I didn't see that video. I saw the video laughing about the pizza box putting it.
Because you only watch it.
You make a video about that?
Outraged about.
Yes, and I talked. Well, it's in that video where I say I don't know if he's guilty. I don't like if there's real victims here. Like, I would never celebrate someone being a human trafficker because there's victims. I wouldn't celebrate him being a human trafficker. That means there are real victims there. Even though I disagree with like his Hustlers University and a lot of the dumb shit he says, I wouldn't want him to be a human trafficker. That means there are real victims being in terrible situations.
Based on what
I did say that, and I don't know if he's guilty. I don't know if he's innocent. Nobody does right now, except for them and whatever's going on in Romania. The joking about a pizza box is things I make about anything that has craziness around it, like the Gwyneth Paltrow trial. There's so much silliness there that I talk about, but at the end of the day, I don't know who's innocent or guilty. I'm joking about the goofiness of things that have come up. Right?
I gotta get going.
Now, he mentioned Andrew Tate, and this is another thing. Andrew Tate is very clearly an important figure in Sneako's life. And I made 2 videos covering Andrew Tate. One of them joking about Hustlers University and just a lot of the silly things that he's done, and the other when he got arrested. So, let's talk about that. I have always maintained that Andrew Tate is a very entertaining clown most of the time, but much like a lot of personalities online, especially ones that sell courses, he has to sprinkle in very agreeable things with some of his rants. So he has good things that he actually will say, especially in terms of like men and their loneliness, and how working out is extremely beneficial to helping with mentality and just general overall mood and well-being. So he does say agreeable things that I've always said he has done a decent job of with those certain topics. But on the whole, most of the things he says are just outrageous nonsense about like how he doesn't watch Star Wars and that's why he gets pussy and has expensive cars, or why books are stupid. Like, there's a lot of silliness there, and Hustlers University, I have always maintained, is completely exploitative of desperate men. So yes, I have made jokes about Andrew Tate. I am not their biggest fan. Now, when I did cover the arrest, I did mention the pizza box theory. At the time, that was reported by multiple outlets as a very real possibility that led to his arrest. So at the time I did report on it, I did say...
they saw the pizza box so that the people in Romania or the police knew that he was there. And that's pretty much it. Like, it makes, like, all jokes aside, like, yeah, it could, and the theory makes sense.
So
it seems, talking about like this being the speculation as to why they finally pursued him now. But yes, I do understand that that was heavily disputed after the fact, a couple days later. But I did talk about it and joke about the pizza box thing, which made Sneako in particular very upset, thinking that I was laughing at 2 men falsely imprisoned.
Yeah, well, they're not
which
falsely
I've
imprisoned.
never laughed about. I've laughed about the idea of Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate being thrown in jail because of pizza boxes. I've also laughed and made jokes about some of the tweets that Andrew has made while in jail, such as talking about practicing his dragon karate fist that would break through every known metal on Earth to fucking shatter tungsten or whatever. And yeah, I've joked about the tweet where he was talking about like ghosts that he's killed, making himself sound like the goddamn paranormal firing squad out there, keeping the halls of the prison safe from ghouls and spirits. And while I made jokes at the idea of a pizza box leading to prison time, it wasn't the actual core idea of 2 innocent men potentially being in jail that gave me a big hearty belly laugh or anything like that. It was the outrageous circumstances surrounding it. I don't know if they're guilty. As I said in the video, I don't know if they are. I do find it weird that they've been charged with the same thing twice with multiple raids now, but at the end of the day, if they're innocent, I don't want to see them in jail. The reasoning for keeping them in jail was like a potential flight risk, like leaving the country, so I guess that was the explanation for it. But I have talked in the past about being in prison with no charge.
Of course, it makes sense that that could happen. Like, it makes absolute sense. He has like a private jet. He's talked about it before. He could just leave if he wanted to. I'm probably gonna lose this.
As being something I don't fucking agree with, which isn't a controversial take. So all of these things that Sneako attributed to me were things that I didn't actually believe, or in my opinion, do. Talking about the pizza box thing the day that it happened wasn't outlandish. It wasn't until a couple days later where that was more debunked and heavily scrutinized. But even then, I still talked about it more of like a silly idea if this was the case. And the jokes I made about Andrew Tate were mainly about the response to Andrew Tate going to jail, like some of the unhinged tweets about how, well, if it's true, human trafficking is not really that big of a deal anyway, so it's still bullshit. It's not that big of a charge. Which is
that's pretty much what the manosphere is saying. Like, is that really sex trafficking?
Still a crazy thing to say. The whole thing was never really about whether or not he truly was guilty or innocent, because I don't know. I still don't know. Nobody still knows because it's still an ongoing investigation. So we did talk about that. He did see where I was coming from, and I was appreciative that he was willing to hear my explanation for where I stand on all of that. And I do think that we came to understand each other's perspective on it. Getting towards the end of our conversation, we started talking once again about one of the things that I really tried to
he was leaving.
Hope to have some kind of breakthrough on the way that he perceives jokes and insults, like, and trying to find what his line was, because he calls a lot of things hit pieces, like when Willie Mack makes a video breaking down like a lot of Sneako's most baffling moments or like really big L's. Willie Mack will point them out and make jokes about it. That's not cancellation to me, but to Sneako it is.
It's jokes, but he can't take jokes.
Kept trying to get to the bottom of that, and we did have more discussion on it, but I don't think we ever really reached a ground where I like agreed with him on his definition of like what canceling is versus what joking is. So like Meat Canyon, he mentions he had no problem with it, he had a good sense of humor about it and found them to be enjoyable. Like, that's great. But then why doesn't that same thing extend to someone who also still makes jokes about it like Willie Mack did? When I really just feel like it's the same thing. There is deplatforming, advocating for deplatforming, and then there's just insulting someone. And I haven't seen a ton of people advocating for Sneako to be deplatformed, aside from a couple of very rare instances of that. The rest I see as people just dunking on him, the same way that he dunks on people he doesn't like. So we did just keep going in circles around that for like another 20 minutes, so I don't really think there's any reason to show too much of that. But I would like to get you to our closing statements, and then something crazy happened at the very end.
Look at the way that people who are telling the truth get painted as. They get painted as these incel, virgin, loser, racist, misogynist. They try to box you in instead of tell the truth about you, because I think that they don't like what you're talking about. But I would like for us to have another conversation in the future. I like that you have a good message about how people should be happy. I like that you're advocating for the gym and you're playing basketball and you're telling people to get out of their comfort zone. I think that those are all really good things. And I do think that you're funny. I can't deny about that. Like, it's a little monotone, but
I think it's mostly just him jerking him off at this point. So okay, whatever.
Yeah, no, you're funny about it.
I do appreciate the conversation. After our conversation, there really wasn't a ton of hostility left. I really feel like Sneako built me up very differently in his head to paint me as a villain in his own mind. And the reality is I just didn't match that description. Now, for me, I did know a lot about Sneako, but after talking to him, I feel like a large part of that is a persona that he's putting on. The way he conducted himself in this conversation, I was actually really surprised with. He was much more calm.
I get what he's saying. I think that everything is an angle. When he's acting like a complete fucking nutcase, I think that that's, again, it's all for social media attention. Like, he knows that if he acts like a fucking animal, people will, like, be more drawn to him. Now he's noticing that people are saying that he's an idiot, so now he's going to pretend to be a little more reasonable. I mean, like, listen, maybe I'm just not being charitable enough, but, like, there's no more charitability left for Sneako. He's not a person anymore. He literally is like he's a fucking psyop, okay? He's just a psyop. That's all it is. He's just he's out of his mind. Whatever.
Like, he is still very passionate.
There's nothing
clearly,
genuine
but he's not having a
about this
fucking
guy
conniption
anymore.
and a meltdown like I've seen him do so many times in the past. So I do feel like it was a productive conversation, and there are just things that I will always disagree with him on. I'm not seeing eye to eye with a lot of the things he talks about, and that's just the reality of it. And it's that way with a lot of people. Like I said, there's no one in the world I see eye to eye on with everything. But there are very big disagreements between us in terms of things that we feel and things that we believe. And after talking to him, it really seems like he himself got lost in his own sauce, and he did talk about like trying to change his approach to things to deliver a more positive message. And that makes me pretty interested to see where he takes that. Like, if he truly does have a positive message he wants to spread, he did recognize that he hadn't been doing a super effective job of it as of the time of this conversation, and wanted to work on ways of rectifying that. I'm very curious to see how he goes about it, and if he truly was being genuine. So the conversation, I do think, was a pretty fascinating and important one to have. And one thing that happened that I still can't believe is real is during our conversation, people came up to him to talk to him, and me as well, during this.
It comes from a place of cope and of jealousy, because they see people who are living a lifestyle opposite of them, and instead of admitting that there's a different path or admitting that they could have a good point, they try to bring down their character. That's the common theme I see with these people. So the intentions that I see from these people.
That's what he does the entire time. He doesn't intellectually engage in anything. That was my entire experience with him. What is he talking about? That's all he does. This is a fucking victim complex 101.
And the collage, they're not pure, they're not good. It's jealousy and it's hate.
And again, that is still something they could say about you as well. That's just one of the things
That's
I was
fair, and that's fair, and that's why you made me realize that I need to, this whole hate brigade on Sneako in the recent weeks, I'm going to repurpose my message now. I'm not going to, what up, man? Yo, do you know MoistCritikal? Hey, say what's up to him now. We're saying hi. Yeah.
Hey.
Look.
I follow you on Twitter.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Hey.
I'm just traveling the world right now.
Cool, man. See Moist Canyon video?
Yeah, we saw me. What did you think of the Meat Canyon video?
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Hey, Charlie, what's up, man?
It was
Hey,
funny.
how's it going,
We laughed
man?
about it.
Cool.
Hey, Charlie. We squashed the beef.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I've been actually wanting to talk to you more.
It's funny.
I think that's a good way to end it on. Hope we could talk again in the future. I don't think we should have beef. And yeah, you did. I want to thank you for starting that whole Sneako hate brigade, because it's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I am guilty of doing the same things that I am mad about. And I do attribute a lot of that to being canceled and a lot of resentment about that. But I just have to spread positivity now and not engage in the same type of behavior that I criticize. Yeah, you're right about that. So I'm just going to go, I'm not going to go tackle it anymore. I don't think that there's any value to that. It's just going to come back to me.
Well, I actually really appreciate the conversation, man. It's nice to hear like a more human side of you outside of like, you know, what I see on Twitter or Rumble. I actually do think this was a very valuable conversation, so I really appreciate you taking the time to have a bit of a call with me about it.
Yeah, thanks, man. And mags, not clips.
Yeah, from now on, bro, if you're gonna be talking about guns, get the terminology right. You very much offended me with that one.
Wow. Incredible. Okay. Well, there you go.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.